Chapter 838. Hearing Long Tingfei's angry roar, many people were so scared that they kept quiet out of fear. Especially when they saw the black muzzle of the gun, their hearts trembled and their bodies went weak. Even me was at a loss of what to do. Although Tang Zheng's skills were extraordinary, was he a match for guns? Tang Zheng quickly gave the answer. The guns flew into his hands on full auto, and the police opened their mouths so wide that a duck egg could be stuffed in them. Tang Zheng rubbed his hands together, and all the guns were kneaded together in a strange shape, turning into a big iron ball. Bang! The sound of the metal ball landing on the ground was like a clap of thunder exploding in everyone's mind. Was this still the power of a human? All the policemen's faces had turned ashen, and they were scared out of their wits. When Tang Zheng's eyes swept over them, they were scared out of their wits. Some of them even fell on their butts. Long Tingfei was also shocked. Although he was from the side branch of the Long family and had the opportunity to cultivate martial arts since he was young, he was lazy by nature. How could he be willing to suffer such hardships? Therefore, he didn't even know any martial arts. However, this did not hinder his knowledge. He was born in the Long family, so he naturally knew the strength of the warriors better than anyone else. When he saw Tang Zheng reveal this move, his expression changed greatly, and he said while trembling with fear, "You are martial artist?" Tang Zheng coldly snorted and could not be bothered with him. He grabbed with his hand and used the heaven-swallowing technique. Long Tingfei involuntarily flew towards Tang Zheng and landed in Tang Zheng's palm. Ah! Long Tingfei's blood-curdling screams were deafening. This pig is so annoying. It's disturbing my rest. Tang Zheng scolded impatiently. He tapped on Long Tingfei's body, and he couldn't move at all. He could only stare at Tang Zheng in panic. When the others saw this strange scene, even the pre-celestial martial artists didn't have time to make a move before Long Tingfei was controlled. Everyone was shocked. Not only were they shocked by Tang Zheng's audacity, they were even more shocked by his strength. The few warriors looked at each other. They knew that if they did not do anything, they would not be able to report back. Thus, they all braced themselves and attacked Tang Zheng, shouting, "Put him down." Tang Zheng glanced at the crowd indifferently. With a flick of his finger, a gust of wind blew, and the few people's bodies suddenly stiffened. They all fell to the ground, unable to move even a single step forward. They thought that even if of Tang Zheng's skills, they would still have the strength to fight with so many of their own. However, things were contrary to their wishes. Of a mantis, a chariot. Tang Zheng did not kill them, he only temporarily made them lose their fighting strength. He coldly glanced at them and said, "Go back and tell Long Xianyuan that the Dianan Long family has not taught their people well and allowed their people to run amok. I will clean up the house for him. If there is anything, feel free to find me." Tang Zheng was resolute and decisive, causing everyone's expression to change greatly. In the land of Dianan, he dared to directly challenge Long Xianyuan. Could it be that he was stupid? Otherwise, how could a normal person have such ambition and courage? Tang Zheng did not care about their thoughts, and continued to speak, "I will not change my name, and will not change my surname. Just tell Long Xianyuan that Tang Zheng helped him clean up the sect." With that, with a crisp crack, Long Tingfei's neck was broken, and he fell to the ground like a dead pig. Screams rose and fell, not only from the martial artists, but also from the police, as well as me and the others. To personally kill someone in front of the police, this was definitely a huge courage. Could it be that he was not afraid of the police? Of course, Tang Zheng was not afraid. Just now, he had used the soul-searching technique to discover Long Tingyu's misdeeds. This person was lecherous and looked like a fat pig. Relying on the power in his hands, not only did he run amok in the unit, no one dared to provoke him, he even insulted his own colleagues. In the end, his colleague's husband came to him and even reported him to the disciplinary department. However, he used his own power to directly and quietly kill this couple, and the report also came to nothing. In addition, he used various methods to forcefully occupy many women. In short, his crimes were too numerous to be recorded, and even death could not wipe out his crimes. How could Tang Jing let him go? If he let him go, with his identity and methods, he would not be punished at all. Then today, he would be a judge and directly give him the punishment he deserved. Mi's colleague stared at Tang Jing in horror, trembling in fear. Thinking back to how he had complained about Tang Jing behind his back and said bad things about him, he couldn't help but feel a chill on his neck. Would he also be killed by him? As for those martial artists, after screaming, they could not hide the panic on their faces. This was a fear that was engraved in their bones. This was because the name Tang Jing was like thunder to them. It was like a nightmare that had been lingering in their hearts for countless days. If Long Tingfei had asked for Tang Zhang's name from the beginning, when he heard these two words, he might not have been so reckless and arrogant. This was because everyone in the Long family knew that Long Tingyu's death was related to Tang Jing. Even the Song and Chu families that had just been destroyed in the capital were related to him. This person was too powerful. With the current strength of the Long family, wanting to contend against him was no different from an egg striking a stone. Therefore, even though Long Xianyuan knew that his son's death was related to Tang Jing, he could do nothing about it. Take this dead pig and scram. Tang Jing berated. As if they had been pardoned, these martial artists carried Long Tingfei's corpse and disappeared along the stairs without looking back. They didn't even take the elevator. Tang Zhang's gaze turned and landed on the policemen. Immediately, they felt as if they had gone from the dog days of June to the dead of winter, and their entire bodies were emitting cold air. You are the people's police, you should protect the people, not help the tyrant and protect these nobles. Go, take care of yourself. After Tang Jing reprimanded them, these people did not dare to refute. They watched Tang Zhang's actions with their own eyes. They had already realized that this youth in front of them was an existence even more powerful than the Long family, and was someone they did not dare to provoke. Thus, he quickly got up and left dejectedly. As for Mi and the others, they looked at Tang Jing from afar. They did not dare to approach him, nor did they dare to leave. Some of the timid girls were already sitting on the ground in fear. Their expressions were even uglier than crying. Tang Jing turned his head to look. He knew that this incident had shocked them quite a bit. However, they all often followed Ling Er's team. Sometimes, it was necessary to frighten them and let them understand some things. It's okay, you all go back and rest. I'll give you all a holiday for the next few days. You can play in Dianan or go to other places to play. Tang Jing said lightly. Holiday. Everyone was confused. How can you say that you can take a holiday? But no one dared to refute. In the end, it was Mi who resisted the fear in her heart and nodded, yes, you all should also rest early. Seeing Tang Jing close the door, everyone immediately began to talk about it. Sister Mi, who is this person? What is his relationship with Ling Er? That's right, what qualifications does he have to give us a holiday? This time, things have become so big and people have died. Let's hurry up and report to the company. Otherwise, there will be a big mess. These people who mingled in the entertainment industry could be considered experienced and knowledgeable people, but everything that happened tonight still taught them an important lesson. Mi recovered her spirit and sternly scolded, don't cause trouble. If he says it's a holiday, then it's a holiday. Why? Because he is the boss. Mi finally couldn't help but reveal Tang Zhang's true identity. Otherwise, these people would definitely ask endlessly. Ah, boss? Everyone was shocked. Although there were occasional rumors that the real boss of the company was not Mu Hongyan, but someone else, they didn't expect him to be so young. This was the real overbearing president, decisive and decisive. The few girls who were scared to death just now immediately had stars in their eyes. However, some people were happy while others were sad. When Long Tingfei's body was transported back to the Long family, the huge Long family was shaken. The Long family did not only have Long Xuanyuan's family, but also many side branches. Long Tingfei's death caused all the side branches to gather at the Long family. They were aggressive and wanted Long Xianyuan to come forward and seek justice for Long Tingfei. When Long Xianyuan heard what happened and knew that it was Tang Zheng who did it, his mood instantly fell to the bottom. He was not angry. He had heard a little about Long Tingfei's usual actions, but there were many children of aristocratic families, and there were many good and bad children. Moreover, it was just a side branch child, so he didn't take it to heart. He didn't expect that this time he would kick an iron plate, Tang Zheng. This was the thing that gave him a headache. As for Long Tingfei's death, whether it was early or late, Long Xianyuan didn't care. Long Xianyuan was thinking, was this Tang Zheng deliberately coming to Dianan to stir up trouble for the Long family, or was it really a coincidence? A coincidence. He snorted disdainfully, as he did not believe in coincidences. He believed that everyone's words and actions had a deep meaning and purpose, especially people like Tang Zheng. Moreover, Tang Zheng had just destroyed the Song and Chu families, and was in high spirits. It was not ruled out that he wanted to strike while the iron was hot and clean up the Long family together. After all, both sides had long cherished wishes. Thinking of this, Long Xianyuan couldn't sit still. Things were different now, and being remembered by Tang Zheng was not a good thing. Seeing a group of people chattering non-stop, wanting him to seek justice, he couldn't help but feel angry. With a bang, his palms slammed on the table, and the sound was like a thunderclap, causing everyone's ears to rumble. Justice? What kind of justice do you want? Don't you know what Tingfei did on a daily basis? Have you elders ever said a single word about him? Now that he's dead, you want justice. Hearing Long Xuanyuan's question, everyone immediately stopped and looked at him in horror. They didn't know why he was so angry at his own people. Everyone was silent. Long Xianyuan took a deep breath and said, "You keep saying that you want to take revenge. That Tang Zheng is in the hotel, do you want to go by yourselves?" Chapter 839. Seeing that no one dared to make a sound, Long Xianyuan coldly snorted and reprimanded, "You only know how to be arrogant in your own home. The good reputation of the Long family has been ruined by you all. But our Long family can't be bullied like this and just ignore it." Someone said faintly. "That's because Long Tingfei hit the muzzle of the gun and gave the other party a chance. Moreover, do you know the purpose of Tang Zheng's visit?" Everyone shook their heads. "Send someone to keep an eye on the hotel. Every move of Tang Zheng must be reported to me. I want to know all their whereabouts in Dianan." Long Xianyuan pondered for a long time and made a decision. Seeing that Long Xianyuan hesitated for a long time and actually just bide his time and wait for the changes, many people felt dissatisfied and said, "Patriarch, isn't this too easy for him? You think it's too easy for him, right? Then you go find him for revenge, or you can find someone in the Long family who can fight with Tang Zheng." Long Xianyuan said in a bad mood. Tang Zheng's strength was outstanding, this was already a recognized fact. Although Long Xianyuan was in the border area, he knew very well that he was not even a match for Tang Zheng. Moreover, he had already fought with Tang Zheng before. At that time, he couldn't do anything to Tang Zheng, let alone now. As soon as these words came out, everyone lowered their heads in shame. Long Xuanyuan's gaze passed through the crowd and floated in the direction of the hotel. He wondered in his heart, "Surname Tang, what is your purpose in coming to Dianan?" Tang Jing didn't know the fear of the Long family, nor did he know how much of a storm Long Tingfei's death had caused in the officialdom of Dianan. Many people who had been bullied by Long Tingfei in the open and in the dark cheered. Long Tingfei finally had his retribution. Of course, more people guessed that the Long family would definitely be angry and perhaps set off a bloody storm. However, what surprised these people was that the Long family actually endured it, as if this matter had never happened at all. This was definitely not the style of the Long family. Tang Zheng was not in the mood to care about these things. Early the next morning, he left the city with the Empyrean Fairy and Nana and went straight to the 100,000 Mountains. Although Ai Me and the others thought that he was taking Linger around without doing anything proper, they didn't dare to refute him. When he stood in front of the 100,000 Mountains again, Tang Zheng had mixed feelings. The 100,000 Mountains were indescribably important to him. If it was not for the 100,000 Mountains, he would not have had that fortuitous encounter, the shaman tribe, Xiao Bai, the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrows. Of course, the 100 Faces Star-Lord would not have left the Buzhou Mountain and wreaked havoc in the world. One peck and one drink, whether it was a blessing or a curse, there was no way to truly distinguish between them. Although the 100,000 Mountains were still lush and green, it gave people a feeling that it was more dangerous than before. In the past, the 100,000 Mountains was filled with miasma, swamps, and ferocious beasts. For ordinary people, it was an absolutely dangerous place. But today, although the miasma had mostly disappeared because of the breaking of the restrictions, the demonic beasts had already occupied this pure land, making it even more dangerous. Not only ordinary people, even the army and warriors were unable to survive in this 100,000 Mountains. Linger sniffed slightly and frowned. What a heavy demonic aura. The 100,000 Mountains is filled with demonic beasts, so of course the demonic aura is heavy. Tang Jing said. Linger curled her lips and said, there are too many brutal auras in this demonic aura. Linger doesn't like it. Although Linger could be considered a demon, she was transformed from a ginseng and did not like to kill. When we go in later, follow us. If anything happens, I will protect you. Tang Jing warned. Linger smiled brightly. Linger will also protect herself. Although Linger has been busy with work these days, she has not relaxed her cultivation. Tang Jing smiled approvingly and walked into the 100,000 Mountains with the two of them. At the same time, Long Xianyuan also received the news and was extremely shocked. Why did these people enter the 100,000 Mountains? Moreover, it was not just Tang Jing. What was the meaning of the other two people going together? Could it be related to the earthquake a while ago? South Yunnan had always been prone to earthquakes, but the Long family was not an ordinary family. How could the news that was used to fool the common people fool the Long family? Long Xianyuan was very clear that the tremor a while ago was not an earthquake, but came from the 100,000 Mountains. Something must have happened. However, he was unwilling to take the risk of entering the 100,000 Mountains, but the 100,000 Mountains was in South Yunnan, his territory. This had always been a rather troublesome problem for him. Now it seemed that something big had happened in the 100,000 Mountains, which was why it attracted Tang Jing to come all the way here. So Tang Jing did not come here specifically for the Long family. Immediately, Long Xianyuan could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Since the other party was not here for the Long family, then he could not provoke them. As for the death of Long Tingfei, he could only blame himself. Long Xianyuan would not go to war with Tang Jing for the sake of a mere disciple of a concubine's branch family. But another problem was placed in front of him. Tang Jing must have a motive for entering the 100,000 Mountains. Should he go or not? Go. After hesitating for a long time, he finally made up his mind. The moment Tang Jing stepped into the 100,000 Mountains, he felt that the aura between heaven and earth had changed. It was as if there were countless pairs of eyes staring at them, which made him feel very strange. Empyrean Fairy said indifferently, there are demon beasts monitoring us. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up, and he said jokingly, "If they dare to stop us, then they can only blame themselves for being unlucky." Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, a wave of heavy footsteps rang out. A few demon beasts blocked their path, and their eyes bloomed with a fierce light. Tang Zheng coldly glanced at the other party. The strength of these demon beasts was too low, they were simply courting death. He was not going to be polite. Just as he was about to make a move, Xiao Bai, who was on his shoulder, had already made a move first. Whiz! With a flash of white light, it charged into the group of demonic beasts. It didn't even breathe fire. Its little claws slapped the demonic beasts' bodies, causing them to fall to the ground. They were only left with the breath of air, not the breath of air. Linger happily clapped her hands, and said excitedly, "Wow, Xiao Bai is so powerful." Xiao Bai was complacent, and directly landed in Linger's arms, and arched into her embrace. Tang Jing speechlessly rolled his eyes. This little pervert actually knew how to take advantage of her, but Linger was completely unaware. Linger seemed to have a natural closeness with Xiao Bai. Apart from Tang Jing, Xiao Bai was the closest to her. As for the Empyrean fairy, Xiao Bai did not dare to act rashly in front of her, and even more so did not dare to jump onto her shoulder or embrace. The Empyrean fairy looked at Xiao Bai, and said, "This little thing is quite powerful." The Empyrean fairy had also wanted to investigate Xiao Bai's origins, but after a few days of hard work, she gave up because there were no clues. This made Tang Jing even more astonished. What exactly was Xiao Bai's origins? Even the famous Empyrean fairy did not know anything about him. The three of them advanced for a while, and encountered a few more demonic beasts. Xiao Bai did the same thing, and eliminated the other party. After repeating this process, they actually encountered a few more waves of demonic beasts, and they gradually went deeper into the heart of the 100,000 mountains. Wait a minute. Suddenly, the Empyrean fairy called out. Tang Zhang looked at her suspiciously, and asked, "What's wrong? Didn't you notice another problem?" The Empyrean fairy asked in a deep voice. Tang Zhang shook his head blankly. The Empyrean fairy said, "Since you keep saying that the 100,000 mountains is an absolutely dangerous place where demonic beasts run rampant, what kind of demonic beasts have we encountered along the way? How strong are they?" Tang Zheng immediately understood, and suddenly said, "You're saying that the strength of those demonic beasts is too weak, and completely different from my judgment." Yes, if just these demonic beasts were enough to judge the 100,000 mountains as a dangerous place, then that would be too ridiculous. Even if a slightly stronger martial artist were to face those demonic beasts, they would not be too passive and would not suffer too much. The Empyrean fairy solemnly said. Tang Zhang's heart thumped, and he secretly said, "That's right." Suing Tian once said that the National Security Bureau and the Dragon Group had sent people into the 100,000 mountains to investigate, but they did not return. Not long after they entered, they met with misfortune. The people of these two organizations were naturally not ordinary people, and they were completely annihilated as soon as they entered the 100,000 mountains. This showed that even the demonic beasts in the periphery were very strong. But the demonic beasts they encountered before could not be considered strong, and it was impossible for them to completely annihilate the people of the National Security Bureau or the Dragon Group. What did this mean? It meant that there was a world of difference between the defensive power of the demonic beasts in the past and now. Where did those powerful demonic beasts that were originally guarding the periphery of the 100,000 mountains go? Could this be related to the earthquake? Tang Jing shook his head, unable to guess the reason. No matter what happens here, we have to have a goal. We can't wander around the 100,000 mountains blindly. After all, this is the 100,000 mountains, and the area is vast. If we don't have a goal, it would simply be a waste of time. The Empyrean fairy reminded. Tang Zheng muttered to himself for a moment, then said, "Let's go to the prehistoric heavenly tomb." The prehistoric heavenly tomb was the core area of the 100,000 mountains. Not only were there countless mysterious tombs, there was also the Buzhou mountain. This became Tang Zhang's first choice of destination. If anything were to happen in the 100,000 mountains, the prehistoric heavenly tomb would be the most likely place. The Empyrean fairy didn't know what was inside the 100,000 mountains, so she could only agree. Although the Empyrean fairy was also someone from thousands of years ago, the 100,000 mountains had been sealed for who knows how many years. Even she did not know what was inside, and had never stepped into this place before. Therefore, she could only accept Tang Zhang's suggestion and quickly rush to the prehistoric heavenly tomb with him. There were no outsiders here, so their speed was extremely fast. Sometimes, they would even walk on air, looking extremely carefree. They only used half a day to arrive in front of the prehistoric heavenly tomb. The gigantic black stone tablet stood in front of them, still giving off a strong sense of shock. "This stone tablet is poisonous, don't touch it," Tang Zhang reminded. Chapter 840. Tang Zhang was someone who had been to the ghost realm, so of course he was not unfamiliar with this so-called death aura. Speaking of it, it was yin qi, causing people to have a strong sense of unease. The current yin qi was even stronger than before, no different from the ghost realm. The three of them carefully walked in. There were no longer any demonic beasts coming to stop them. Looking around, it was quiet, deathly silent. Boom! 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 Suddenly, a loud sound came from afar. The three of them were startled and subconsciously stopped in their tracks. Looking up, they saw black clouds pressing down on them. The sky was extremely low, as if they could reach it with their hands, giving off a very oppressive feeling. Their pupils constricted, and they couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Giant! The sound of rapid breathing rang out in the deathly silent tomb. It was exceptionally ear-piercing, causing one's nerves to involuntarily tense up. In the distance, a giant that towered into the clouds stood between heaven and earth. This person was hundreds of meters tall, equivalent to a small mountain. Although Tang Zhang had seen the size of the four symbols venerable before, he was still shocked by this giant. This giant was several times taller than the four symbols venerable. Furthermore, it was not a stone statue, but a living person. Tang Zhang had never thought that there would be giants in this world. Furthermore, infinity was so huge that it made ordinary humans feel insignificant. The 9 heavens maiden's frown deepened. She murmured to herself, "It is said that the giant tribe did exist in ancient times." However, the giant tribe was small in number. Later on, they gradually disappeared and went extinct. Why is there a giant in this prehistoric heavenly tomb? Giant race? Tang Zhang was shocked. Is there really a giant race in history? Empyrean fairy nodded. That is indeed the case, but the giant race has long been exterminated. They were all puzzled. Furthermore, Tang Zhang had come to the prehistoric heavenly tomb twice, but he had never encountered a giant. Why would there be a giant this time? Could it be that the 100 Transformation Star Lord was behind this again? Tang Zhang was furious. Just how many more tricks did this 100 Transformation Star Lord have up his sleeves? Roar! The giant roared towards the sky, the sound waves spreading in all directions. The black clouds in the sky were blown apart, but they quickly gathered together. Boom! The giant raised his foot and placed it on the ground. The ground trembled as if there was an earthquake. However, it was clear that this tremor was completely different from the earthquake that was rumored in the outside world. This tremor was far less intense than that one, and it could only be felt on the ground nearby. It definitely wouldn't spread beyond the 100,000 mountains. The giant walked deeper into the desolate heavenly tomb with large strides. The three of them immediately looked in that direction. However, the sky was dark and they couldn't see clearly, but Tang Zhang knew that it was the direction of Mount Buzhou. Let's follow them. Tang Jing hurriedly said, and then chased after him. The Empyrean fairy opened her eyes wide in curiosity when she saw the numerous tombstones in front of her. However, she soon discovered something strange and cried out, "These tombstones have all been opened." All of Tang Zhang's attention was on the giant. When he heard this, he quickly looked over. Sure enough, these tombs were all broken open, leaving behind large pits, but there was nothing in the tombs. Tang Zhang suddenly remembered the tomb of the Beast King. The Beast King was almost resurrected, and if not for Xiao Bai's help, the Beast King would have really been resurrected. These tombs were empty. Could it be that the people who were buried here had also been resurrected? With that thought, Tang Zhang's entire body turned cold, and his heartstrings trembled. If that was really the case, then it would be too terrifying. The people buried in this desolate heavenly tomb were all powerful figures from the ancient era. If they were to revive, then the balance of power in this world would be completely broken. Ordinary people would not be able to resist these experts at all. They would only be sending themselves to their deaths. It can't be. What ability does the 100 Transformation Star Lord have to revive the dead? This is too heaven-defying, it's impossible for him to do it. Tang Zhang kept comforting himself. Empyrean Fairy looked at the tomb and muttered to herself. The three of them continued to chase after the giant and gradually walked out of the tomb. Tang Zhang's heart started to beat faster than usual. In this desolate heavenly tomb, he had experienced a lot and gained a lot. Among them, the most important thing was Qi Yu's heart. He subconsciously touched his chest. Qi Yu's heart was inside and had already become a part of his body. Speaking of which, Qi Yu's heart had helped him many times. The thing that left the deepest impression on him was that time in the Sky Cavern, he had subdued the Sword Soul and repelled the Sword God, resolving a huge crisis for him. From then on, Qi Yu's heart seemed to have completely calmed down. There was no reaction at all, and Tang Zhang had almost forgotten about it. But after coming here, these memories surged up like a tidal wave, causing him to sigh with emotion. A moment later, they walked out of the tomb and got closer and closer to the giant. However, the giant did not seem to notice them and continued to walk forward. Hua hua hua. The rumbling sound of flowing water came from the front. From afar, a waterfall could be seen falling from the sky, flowing down 3,000 feet. The source of the waterfall seemed to be in the sky, hidden behind the clouds. Tang Jing dared to assert that the so-called famous waterfall attractions in the world were far less shocking than this waterfall. The waterfall was not wide, but the water that flowed down had a strong impact. It did not fall to the ground, but instead fell into a huge canyon. The last time Tang Jing went to the Buzhou mountain, he did not pass by this place, so he did not know that there was such a place. Pay attention to that canyon. Empyrean Fairy's expression turned cold as she reminded him. Tang Zhang was shocked. He immediately looked over, and saw that the canyon was filled with a black fog, which enveloped the top of the canyon. The river water directly passed through the black qi and fell into the canyon. Tang Zhang was not unfamiliar with the black qi. It was yin qi, and the yin qi here was actually even stronger than the ghost realm. This made Tang Zhang puzzled. What was the bottom of the canyon? Why was there such a strong yin qi gathered? If an ordinary person breathed in a little of this yin qi, they would have horrible illusions and be scared to death. The giant stopped and stood at the edge of the cliff. He lowered his head and let out a shocking roar toward the bottom of the canyon. Roar! Like a sudden clap of thunder, the mist-like yin energy was immediately blown away. What is he doing? Tang Zhang asked in confusion. Empyrean Fairy listened carefully and suddenly shouted, "There is movement below the canyon." Movement? Could it be something else? Tang Zhang was shocked. There was no lack of surprises today. This canyon is long enough. Let's stay away from the giant and go to the edge of the canyon to see what is going on below. This was exactly what Empyrean Fairy wanted. so the three of them carefully avoided the giant and walked toward the canyon. Ling Er's expression had become extremely unnatural. This was the first time she had encountered such a dangerous and exciting thing since she was a child. She could not help but be a little flustered. Tang Jing noticed her strangeness and quickly held her hand and comforted her. Ling don't be afraid, I am here. Ling opened her eyes wide and smiled sweetly. She nodded and said, "And Ling will listen to Master. With Master here, Ling is not afraid." The three of them finally quietly came to the edge of the canyon and looked down. The light was very dim, but they could vaguely see something climbing up the cliff. Something is climbing up. The three of them looked at each other and saw the horror in each other's eyes. What kind of thing would climb out of this gloomy canyon? They were afraid that it was not something good. Tang Jing quickly circulated his true qi, and his eyes lit up. His vision was finally better, and he could finally distinguish what those things were. Demonic beasts, those are actually demonic beasts. Tang Jing exclaimed in a low voice. These demonic beasts were obviously more powerful than the ones they had encountered before, and not just by a little bit. Could it be that all the powerful demonic beasts in the 100,000 mountains had run to this canyon? This was probably the case. But why did the demonic beasts go to the canyon? This should be related to the 100 Faces Star Lord. They had been in the 100,000 mountains for a while, but they had not seen any trace of the 100 Faces Star Lord. Where was he? In the Buzhou Mountains. Or, in this canyon. They are indeed demonic beasts, but look, some demonic beasts have fallen from the cliff again. Could it be that there is something stopping them from climbing up? Are you saying that there is something in this canyon that is fighting against the demonic beasts? Tang Jing was shocked. In this bottomless canyon, there was not a trace of sunlight for many years. What kind of living creature could there be? What kind of living creature could endure this hellish torment? Let's get closer. The Empyrean fairy suggested. Tang Jing pondered for a moment and agreed. Although it was risky this time, they had to get to the bottom of this. Otherwise, there would be endless trouble. The three of them quietly moved in the direction of the giant, which was closer to the location of the demonic beasts. They stopped again and found a new situation. The demonic beasts were actually tied with iron chains. The iron chains extended along the cliff into the canyon and disappeared into the darkness. The iron chains were straight. Obviously, there was a strong force on the other end. The demonic beasts crawled up with great difficulty, as if they were resisting the force on the other end of the iron chains. What is it? They could already be sure that there was something on the other end of the iron chains, but they were not sure what it was. Whoosh! 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 Demonic beasts constantly flew from the cliff and were pulled down into the canyon abyss. However, the other demonic beasts continued to persevere and climb up bit by bit. The giant stared at all this with a pair of huge eyes. Suddenly, he found that more and more demonic beasts were falling down. He roared angrily and grabbed the waterfall with his big hand. It was as if he had grabbed the waterfall in the air. A huge water chain was waved in his hand and pulled towards the depths of the canyon. Boom! With a loud sound, yin qi soared into the sky from the canyon. The water chain immediately shattered and turned into droplets of water. Chapter 841. At the bottom of the canyon, in the darkness, a huge object gradually emerged from the strong yin qi. Tang Zhang and the other two stared at it without blinking. Bronze coffin. What a big bronze coffin. Tang Zhang was shocked and couldn't help but exclaim. The bronze coffin was about 100 meters long and dozens of meters wide, almost the same size as the huge canyon. The bronze coffin was tied with pitch-black iron chains, and the other end was tied to the demonic beasts. It turned out that so many demonic beasts were tied to the chains to drag the bronze coffin out of the canyon. What was in the bronze coffin? A dead person. Was there a need for such a big coffin? One had to know that even the coffin of the first Emperor Qin Shi Huang was mediocre and could not be compared to this thing in front of him. Who was the person in the coffin? Tang Jing couldn't imagine it. As for the purpose of the demonic beasts dragging the bronze coffin, he couldn't guess. Roar! Roar! Suddenly, a strange roar sounded from the abyss of the canyon. A strong yin qi blew away the tornado and directly wrapped around the bronze coffin. The demonic beasts were stunned and had to stop. Tang Jing could clearly see that the land of darkness was emitting waves of black qi that soared into the sky. At the same time, another white light also soared into the sky. White bones. Taking a closer look, the white light turned out to be white bones, like the bones left behind after a rotten corpse. These bones did not fall apart. Instead, they gathered together, as if they were a single person. They trembled with the black light without fear. Tang Zhang was suddenly enlightened, and suddenly remembered the empty graves he saw earlier. Could it be that these white bones crawled out from those graves? To be able to make the white bones move like a person, it was enough to show that the spell was strange and powerful. Perhaps all of this was related to the 100 Faces Star Lord. Tang Zheng looked around, trying to find the traces of the 100 Faces Star Lord, but in the end, he found that it was in vain. Why was the 100 Faces Star Lord absent from such an important scene? He liked to play, so he shouldn't miss this scene. Those black lights did not have a concrete shape at all. They transformed into all kinds of strange shapes and clashed with the piles of white bones. Once the white bone was wrapped in the black light, it would not take long for the bone to turn black and fall apart. This meant that the black gas was extremely powerful. He didn't know what it was. The black light dragged white bones, and the demonic beast immediately regained its ability to move, dragging the coffin and climbing up. The giant suddenly roared and grabbed the waterfall that seemed to be falling from the sky. A white water chain was formed again and was thrown into the canyon. Boom! The water chain shattered the black gas. The demonic beasts were overjoyed. Taking advantage of this gap, they quickly climbed up. Some demonic beasts finally climbed out of the canyon. These demonic beasts were obviously more vigilant than the giants. When the demonic beasts climbed up, they immediately noticed Tang Zheng and the others. Roar! The demonic beast roared angrily. The giant looked down upon them, and its huge eyes immediately locked onto the three of them. Whoosh! The water chains danced in the air and flew out of the canyon, directly attacking Tang Zheng and the others. Tang Zheng did not dare to wait for death. He hurriedly took out his war soul sword. The bright sword light collided with the water chains. The water chains exploded, and Tang Zheng flipped several times in the air before he could stabilize his body. Tang Zheng was shocked. He was the only one who knew the power of this attack. This seemingly casual attack was definitely the killing power of a golden elixir realm cultivator. If he hadn't been careless, he would have suffered a great loss. Seeing that Tang Zheng was safe and sound, the giant raised its foot and stomped over. Tang Zheng somersaulted in the air and dodged. The place where the giant foot landed, rocks flew and dust rose, creating a large crater. Tang Zheng knew the killing power of this kind of big guy. The four symbols venerable was a big guy. In actual combat, they often had the upper hand by virtue of their size. Unfortunately, the four symbols venerable was damaged and could no longer be used. Tang Zheng tried his best, but he couldn't repair the four symbols venerable. Since the first attack did not hit, the giant continued to attack Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng relied on his nimble life to shuttle back and forth, dodging the attacks by a hair's breadth each time. Without the giant holding them back, the situation in the canyon changed. The strange black gas gradually gained the upper hand. More and more white bones were dyed black and turned into bone dust. The demonic beast roared again and again. It tried to pull the bronze coffin up, but it also failed. The two sides were in a stalemate. Loud sounds came from the bottom of the canyon. The mountain shook and huge rocks fell from both sides of the canyon. "Giant, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and pull the bronze coffin up." An angry roar came from the bottom of the canyon. Tang Zheng was stunned. This voice was all too familiar. It was the 100 Faces Star Lord. It turned out that the 100 Faces Star Lord had gone down to the bottom of the canyon. Hearing the 100 Faces Star Lord's voice, Tang Zheng didn't hesitate. No matter what was in the bronze coffin, since the 100 Faces Star Lord wanted to pull it out, he had to stop him. "Fu Yao! Stop them!" Tang Zheng shouted. Although the mysterious Maiden of the Nine Heavens was also very curious about what was inside the bronze coffin and even wanted to find out, after hearing Tang Zheng's words, she forcefully suppressed the curiosity in her heart. Her figure flashed and she kicked the demonic beasts that were climbing up the cliff. These demonic beasts were resisting the huge force coming from the other side. They couldn't resist the Empyrean fairy at all. They were fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. In fact, even if they didn't divert their attention, they wouldn't be a match for the Empyrean fairy. As for Ling, although she was still afraid, when she saw Tang Zheng and the Empyrean fairy joining the battle, she didn't want to fall behind. She rushed towards the demonic beasts. Fortunately, these demonic beasts were restrained by the bronze coffin. Otherwise, Ling would be at a great disadvantage. Ling didn't have any Dharma treasures. Her tender fists were also very powerful. She forced a few demonic beasts down the cliff. Hearing the 100 Faces Star Lord's urging, the giant's attack power increased sharply. Tang Zheng's situation wasn't optimistic, but the Empyrean fairy finally made her move against the giant. Boom! The giant took a series of punches from the Empyrean fairy and fell straight down the canyon. Tang Zheng was shocked. This was the difference between the Golden Elixir realm and the Incarnation realm. It was an insurmountable gap. The giant fell and hit the bronze coffin. The demonic beasts struggling on the cliff were all knocked down the cliff by the impact. "Who is it?" the 100 Faces Star Lord roared. Obviously, he also knew that someone was coming. Tang Zheng sneered, but did not reply. He only looked down at the canyon from above. When the giant landed on the bronze coffin, the chains on the bronze coffin were all broken, and the black chi immediately wrapped around the giant. The giant kept roaring and struggling, but the black gas was even more powerful. It firmly entangled the giant, making it impossible for him to get away. The bronze coffin quickly fell to the bottom of the canyon. It was about to disappear into the darkness. Whoosh! A person jumped down from the cliff. Tang Zheng was shocked and shouted, "No!" However, it was too late. He watched as the Empyrean fairy fell into the bronze coffin. From afar, the Empyrean fairy's voice sounded, "I want to see what's inside." Tang Zheng shook his head and sighed helplessly. He was also curious about what was inside the bronze coffin that made the 100 Faces Star Lord think so. However, when he saw the black gas, he flinched. With his cultivation, he might not be able to unravel this secret. However, when the Empyrean fairy jumped down, he knew that he couldn't stay out of it. He pulled Ling and said, "Hold on to me. Don't be afraid." With Master here, Ling is not afraid. Ling nodded and hugged him meekly. Xiao Bai also lay on Tang Zheng's shoulder. He jumped, and the biting cold wind blew past their ears. The two people and one beast jumped down the cliff. However, Tang Zheng didn't jump toward the bronze pipe. That was because there was a black gas on it that made him afraid. Before figuring out what the other party was, it was better to be careful. After falling for a while, they were surrounded by darkness. Only the whistling of the wind could be heard. There was no light at all. It was so dark that they couldn't even see their own fingers. Tang Jing ignited a ball of true fire on his finger and slightly illuminated the surroundings. However, there was still nothing left. There was only darkness, boundless darkness. Suddenly, a loud sound came from below. Then, a ball of light erupted and rushed into the sky. He saw piles of white bones. These bones were turned into fine powder by the light. Tang Jing lamented in his heart. These experts of a generation couldn't even rest in peace after death. He didn't know what method the 100 Faces Star Lord had used to summon them and use them. In the end, they were all smashed into pieces. If those experts were in heaven, they would probably hate the 100 Faces Star Lord to the bone. With the help of this ball of light, Tang Jing could finally see the bottom of the canyon clearly. The bronze coffin had fallen to the ground. The giant had already stood up, but there were huge black spots on his body. He was still fighting against the black gas, trying to shake it off. However, the black gas was very difficult to deal with and he couldn't do so. As for the Empyrean fairy, she stood in the air and floated above the bronze coffin. She stared at the bronze coffin as if she wanted to see through it. Another scene that attracted Tang Jing's attention was that of two people. The 100 Faces Star Lord was fighting someone. This person was very powerful and was actually on par with the 100 Faces Star Lord. Furthermore, his body was covered in a black gas. His face was blurry and not easy to recognize. However, Tang Jing only looked for a while and recognized that this person was actually Tian Chanzi. Tang Jing's eyes immediately widened. How could it be Tian Chanzi? How could his cultivation be compared to the 100 Faces Star Lord? Furthermore, the spells and divine skills Tian Chanzi used were completely different. They were definitely not heaven-flying immortal or similar methods. Tang Jing was very unfamiliar with them. However, although the face was blurry, Tang Jing would never mistake it. He was Tian Chanzi. However, his strength had become exceptionally strong. Tang Jing was very unfamiliar with him. Chapter 842. Tang Jing felt that it was unimaginable, as if he was dreaming. Could it be that Tian Chanzi had hidden his strength before, and this was the real him? No way. If he had been so powerful from the start, he would not have been controlled by 100 Change Star Lord and Mao Buzhou, and almost lost his life. Tian Chanzi had disappeared for so long. Could it be that some fortuitous encounter had happened to him during this period of time, and that was why his strength had increased by leaps and bounds? But this was too exaggerated. There was a certain limit to the increase of one's cultivation, and it was impossible to increase by too much without a limit. There must be a demon behind this abnormality. Tang Jing felt that something unknown must have happened during this period of time. Empyrean Fairy also saw Tian Chanzi, and frowned suspiciously. She had fought with Tian Chanzi before, and was very clear about his strength. Looking at his current strength, her heart was also stirred up, and she muttered to herself. Tian Chanzi did not say a word, and ignored Tang Jing as if he was a stranger. In his eyes, there was only 100 Change Star Lord, and each of his moves was incomparably fierce. The bottom of the canyon was turned upside down, rocks swirled in the air, and Yin Qi soared to the sky. The ground was already covered with the corpses of demonic beasts, and there were also piles of white bones. It was like hell on earth, and coupled with the environment where the Yin Qi roared, it was really frightening. Integral Ling could not help but tremble, and said, "Master, what's wrong with him? Why does Ling feel that I don't recognize him?" Ling Er's perception was sharp, and her temperament was simple, so she made the most direct judgment. Tang Jing shivered, and thought that Ling was right. However, the most important thing now was not to find out what had happened to Tian Chanzi, but to deal with 100 Change Star Lord. 100 Change Star Lord also saw Tang Jing, and his pupils shrank and said, "So it's you. The demon race's attack in the sea must have something to do with you, right?" Seeing that 100 Change Star Lord recognized him, Tang Jing nodded naturally, and said, "So what? 100 Change Star Lord, you don't care about the lives of the people in this world, and you actually activated the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array without permission, and led the demon race back. You almost caused a great disaster, and harmed the world. You are too ruthless." 100 Change Star Lord heard this, and laughed crazily, and said, "Haha, too ruthless. So what if those people died? Moreover, the people I killed when I activated the Mountain and River Blood Sacrifice Array were from the Japanese nation. A few decades ago, the Japanese nation invaded Huaxia. Don't tell me you still think it's a pity that their people died. 100 Change Star Lord, and the people of Huaxia, and Huaxia, Hua, and the Xia's. Huaxia. 100 Change Lord didn't care, and said, "What do the lives of mortals have to do with me?" Tang Zhang was furious. 100 Change Lord was a madman. No wonder he broke Mount Buzhou. In his eyes, there were no rules. Except for himself, other people's lives were like grass. This kind of person was an absolute scourge in the world. He didn't know why he didn't kill him directly back then, but imprisoned him. It's a pity that I didn't bring back too many demons this time, and most of them were intercepted and destroyed by you. But those demons are chess pieces, and it doesn't matter if they die. My biggest gain is this." 100 Change Lord pointed at the bronze coffin in front of him proudly. "This is your biggest gain? What do you mean?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. 100 Change Lord sneered, and said, "Anyway, none of you can leave here today, so there's no harm in telling you. This bronze coffin hides a great secret, and if the demons didn't return, I wouldn't know this secret." Tang Zheng was confused, but he also realized the seriousness of the situation. The so-called great secret mentioned by 100 Change Lord was definitely not a small matter. Tang Zheng subconsciously looked at the bronze coffin, wondering what kind of great secret was hidden in it that made 100 Change Lord mobilize so many people. "What's the secret inside?" Tang Zheng asked. "The secret that I've been searching for," 100 Change Lord said mysteriously. Seeing that Tang Zheng still wanted to ask, he added, "It's a pity that the villainous heavens are against me. This Tian Chanzi actually followed me all the way here and ruined my plans." After saying this, 100 Change Lord glared at Tian Chanzi with hatred and regret. Tang Zheng asked suspiciously, "How did he ruin your plans?" The thing protecting the bronze coffin actually chose to merge with him, increasing his strength in an instant, and using his body to fight against me. Tang Zheng was shocked. Tian Chanzi was not hiding his strength, but had really reached his current strength in a very short time. This was too incredible. The Empyrean Fairy also stared at Tian Chanzi with burning eyes, trying to find an answer from him, but it was all in vain. Everything here was full of mystery, and even she did not know. In fact, although the Empyrean Fairy had a special identity as the daughter of the Emperor of Heaven, she was trapped in the Mountain River map by the Emperor of Heaven for some reason, so she did not know what had happened for a long time. Later, she escaped from the Mountain River map and met Qin Shi Huang, who helped her unify the world. Later, she slept in Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum for 1,000 years, so she knew very little about the outside world. Looking at the bronze coffin, she could not find any information related to it in her mind. But there was no doubt that this thing was extraordinary, and must not fall into the hands of 100 Change Lord. But as long as I open the bronze coffin, that power will naturally disappear, and he will no longer be a threat to me, 100 Change Lord said complacently. Roar! Tian Chanzi let out a roar and attacked 100 Change Lord again, who quickly dodged. Tian Chanzi, can you hear me? Looking at Tian Chanzi's crazy appearance, Tang Zheng wanted to know what had happened to him. 100 Change Lord said that Tian Chanzi was being controlled, but what was controlling him? I want to know all these questions, so I called Tian Chanzi to see if he can answer. However, Tian Chanzi turned a deaf ear and continued to attack 100 Change Star Lord fiercely. Ha ha ha, you still want him to answer? He is already being controlled, just like a walking corpse. How can he answer your questions? 100 Change Star Lord laughed disdainfully. Tang Zhang's heart skipped a beat. The words "a walking corpse" fiercely provoked him. Although he often bickered with Tian Chanzi, the two had deep feelings for each other. If not for Tian Chanzi, Tang Zhang would not have everything he had today. He was afraid that he would have failed the college entrance exam, and then exploded and died at the age of 20. Therefore, he and Tian Chanzi had saved each other's lives. They were both very important people in each other's lives, and this kind of relationship could not be cut off. Tang Zhang suddenly turned to Empyrean Fairy and asked, "Is there a way for him to recover?" Empyrean Fairy also stared at Tian Chanzi and said, "Didn't 100 Change Star Lord say that as long as we open the bronze coffin, the power in his body will disappear? Then let's open the bronze coffin." Tang Zhang took a deep look at the bronze coffin. Although this suggestion was very risky, there was no other way. This was the only way to survive. He was willing to take this risk for Tian Chanzi. 100 Change Star Lord was entangled by Tian Chanzi. Hearing this, his face suddenly changed, and his thin body let out a hysterical roar. "Don't open the bronze coffin. It's mine. Don't even think about touching it." Tang Zhang sneered and said, "You can't even protect yourself. What ability do you have to stop us?" 100 Change Star Lord was furious and shouted at the giant, "I didn't resurrect you to let you watch a good show. Stop them at all costs." Roar! The giant let out a long roar. Although it was still entangled by the black gas, it still rushed toward Empyrean Fairy without hesitation. Just now, he had suffered losses from Empyrean Fairy, so this time he was extra careful. Empyrean Fairy did not show any abnormality, and slowly landed. Bang! She stepped on the bronze coffin. The black gas on the bronze coffin quickly retreated in all directions, as if it had met its nemesis. Ha! Not only Tang Zhang, but also Empyrean Fairy stared at her feet in surprise. She was already prepared to fight against the black gas. Now that she was stuck there, the black gas would not hurt her. 100 Change Star Lord's face suddenly changed, and he exclaimed, "Impossible. How did you do this? Who on earth are you?" Tang Zhang laughed and said sarcastically, "Didn't you say that no one could open my bronze coffin? Now it seems that is not necessarily true." 100 Change Star Lord rolled his eyes and said angrily, "If you want to die, open it." "What do you mean?" Tang Zhang and Empyrean Fairy were stunned and stopped moving subconsciously. "There is something very dangerous inside. Except for me, everyone else will die," 100 Change Star Lord said solemnly. Tang Zhang and Empyrean Fairy looked at each other and shook their heads at the same time. "We don't believe you. Stop him," 100 Change Star Lord roared. The giant finally stood up and attacked Empyrean Fairy. The Empyrean Fairy had already figured out the giant's combat strength, so she was not afraid. Her every move made the giant flustered, and the cliff of the canyon shook, causing rocks to fall. 100 Change Star Lord was burning with anxiety as he looked at the battered and exhausted giant. However, he could do nothing as he looked at the corpses of the demonic beasts and the white bones on the ground. Seeing that the Heaven Monk was closing in again, the 100 Transformation Star Lord roared, both of his hands pressed down in the air. Bang bang bang, the corpses of the demonic beasts actually exploded, turning into a bloody mist, and the blood quickly gathered towards the 100 Transformation Star Lord. He grabbed the air with his hands, and the blood mist turned into bloody claws. Puff! 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 The bloody claws left many wounds on Tian Chanzi's body, and some of them were so deep that his bones could be seen. However, Tian Chanzi did not feel anything and continued to attack 100 Change Star Lord. "Humph, you are courting death. Now, I will use up a lot of my power to defeat you and stop those people. 100 Change Star Lord made up his mind. Once the bloody claws were formed, their power increased greatly. The sky was filled with bloody claws, and Tian Chanzi was at a disadvantage. His body was also dyed red. Tang Zheng looked at the scene, but there was nothing he could do. He focused on the bronze coffin. Chapter 843. The bronze coffin lay quietly on the ground, surrounded by black gas. Only the place where the Empyrean fairy stood was free of the black gas. The giant viciously attacked the Empyrean fairy, forcing her to leave the bronze coffin. Tang Zheng and Linger were the only ones who could move freely. Linger, watch from the side. I'm going to activate it, Tang Zheng said in a deep voice. Linger worriedly warned, Master, be careful. Tang Zheng nodded his head heavily, but he did not touch the bronze coffin with his hands. Instead, he raised War's soul and pierced it into the gap. Whoosh! The black gas was like a cat that had smelled the fishy smell of fish. It quickly scurried over and directly rushed towards the War Soul sword. Tang Zheng's spirit trembled, he quickly circulated his qi, his true qi surged, his sword qi was abundant, it intertwined with the black qi, they were equally matched. Tang Zheng could clearly feel a bone-chilling power coming from the black qi, causing him to shiver uncontrollably. He gritted his teeth and took a deep breath. He thought to himself, I don't believe that I can't deal with you. With a sudden burst of strength, the bronze coffin actually loosened a little, and an earth-shattering yin qi seeped out, making Tang Zheng feel as if he had fallen into an endless ice cave. He forced himself to endure the trembling of his soul and muttered to himself, what's inside? It's so cold. Could it be a corpse? This prehistoric heavenly tomb is a product of the ancient era. If it really was a corpse, it would have already rotted. No, he immediately remembered the Beast King and Qin Shi Huang. These powerful cultivators had ways to preserve their bodies, so there might be a lifelike corpse inside. Xiao Bai sensed Tang Zheng's abnormality and bared his fangs at the bronze coffin as he growled, as if declaring his authority. Then, it opened its little mouth and spat out a stream of flames, which immediately enveloped the bronze coffin. Ah! Tang Zheng was shocked. He didn't expect Xiao Bai to be so bold as to spit fire. Needless to say, as soon as the flames appeared, the bone-chilling feeling disappeared by a lot. The key was that the black gas seemed to have met its nemesis and retreated with whooshing sounds. Tang Zheng suddenly had an idea and said, you still want to escape? Xiao Bai, trap this black gas. The giant bronze coffin was related to Tian Chanzi's life and death, so Tang Zheng couldn't be careless. After giving the order, Xiao Bai spat out a few more balls of flames, trapping all the black gas. The black gas struggled left and right in the flames, but it was unable to break through the defense of the flames. It was like a trapped beast, struggling futilely. Without the restriction of the black qi, Tang Zheng's strength increased greatly. With a ding sound, the War Soul sword bent slightly and finally opened up a large crack. The flames on the bronze coffin had already disappeared, so Tang Zheng held the coffin lid with both hands and let out a low roar. The coffin lid was as heavy as 1,000 caddies. Rise! Tang Zheng used his strength and the coffin lid moved bit by bit. Stop! Tian Chanzi shouted with all his might. His voice was completely different from usual, giving off a creepy feeling. Before he finished speaking, he had already abandoned the 100 Change Star Lord and attacked Tang Zheng. The black gas in his hand changed shape and turned into a long spear. Whiz! The air surged and automatically divided into 2 rows. The long spear shot towards Tang Zheng's back. Ling hurriedly shouted, Master, be careful. Then, she bravely blocked Tang Zheng's back. Tang Zheng had an idea. He shouted and used all his strength. The War Soul sword bent to the limit and was about to break. Bang! The coffin lid flew up and hit the cliff with a muffled sound. Seeing that the long spear was about to pierce through Ling Er's chest, Xiao Bai quickly transformed. His feet stepped on flames and even his body was burning with raging flames. Boom! A monstrous flame wrapped around the long spear. The long spear's attack decreased sharply and stopped in front of Ling Er, unable to advance any further. Ling Er's face was filled with determination. Even if the long spear did not stop, she would definitely not retreat half a step. The coffin lid opened and Tian Chanzi let out a blood-curdling scream. The long spear directly exploded and turned into nothingness. No one expected this scene. They could not help but be shocked. Even the 100-change Star Lord was dumbstruck. He stomped his feet hatefully. He actually beat me to it. Tang Zheng could no longer care about the situation behind him. He stretched his neck and looked into the bronze coffin. When he saw the situation inside the coffin, his face changed greatly. His eyes widened and he was flabbergasted. It was as if he had seen a ghost. He took a few steps back before stopping. Everyone looked at his reaction in disbelief. They could not help but mutter in their hearts. What exactly did he see in the bronze coffin to have such a big reaction? Furthermore, it was obvious that he was frightened. Tang Zheng, what's wrong with you? Empyrean Fairy pushed back the giant and asked curiously. Ling Er also stared at Tang Zheng, wondering why her master had such a big reaction. Even the 100-change Star Lord was not in a hurry to rush over to take a look. He wanted to know what was inside. In fact, he only knew a little about the situation inside the bronze coffin and did not know the details. Last time, when he was on the island nation, he used the Mountain River blood sacrifice array to welcome the return of the Devil clan. Although there were only 100 of them, their cultivations were not weak. Furthermore, they brought him an unexpected news. It turned out that the return of the Devil clan this time was to prepare for the return of the entire Devil clan. Back then, when the Devil God returned, it did not have much of an effect. Therefore, the Devil clan finally found a glimmer of hope this time. It turned out that the Devil clan had accidentally discovered a secret of the Devil clan's ancestor, and that was a huge bronze coffin. This huge bronze coffin was buried in the prehistoric heavenly tomb in the 10,000 huge mountains. There was no reliable evidence as to who was buried in this huge bronze coffin, but one thing was certain. There was a huge secret hidden within, a secret that was enough to change this world. Originally, the 100-change Star Lord did not believe the words of the Devil clan, but after the other party swore and even sent an elite to follow him back to the 10,000 huge mountains, he gradually believed it. As for the Devil clan on that ship, it was just bait. The 100-change Star Lord had long since had a certain understanding of this modern society, and knew that his actions in the island nation could not be hidden from the authorities. Thus, he might as well build a plank road and secretly send those Devil Clan S to their deaths, while he brought an elite Devil Clan S to quietly return to the 10,000 huge mountains. The two sides worked together and investigated the entire way. In the end, they found this canyon in the prehistoric heavenly tomb. The Devil Clan was certain that the bronze coffin was right below. However, legend had it that the bronze coffin was as heavy as Mount Tai. Even the 100-change Star Lord was unable to bring it up by himself. The 100-change Star Lord had raised a question. Why couldn't they just go down to the bottom of the canyon and open the bronze coffin? Why did they have to go through so much trouble to get the bronze coffin out? The Devil Clan was clearly prepared and gave a convincing answer. It turned out that there was a mysterious power in the canyon. This power not only protected the bronze coffin, but also imprisoned it. It was as if this was an arrangement made by someone back then. They wanted the bronze coffin to remain silent at the bottom of the canyon, and no one would care about it. If the bronze coffin was opened in the canyon, it would cause a huge reaction. All the people in the canyon would die, and not a single one would be left alive. Only by taking the bronze coffin out and losing the restriction of that mysterious power would the true secret of the bronze coffin be discovered, and there would not be any negative reactions. Therefore, when the 100-change Star Lord said that he would definitely die after opening the bronze coffin, he was not just trying to scare him. But now that things had come to this, what was done, and there was no turning back. Seeing Tang Jing retreat as if he had seen a ghost, the 100-change Star Lord also wanted to take a look at what was inside. But when he remembered the instructions of the Devil Clan, he hesitated. Those Devil Clan members had already died at the hands of Tian Chanzi, so they would not be able to see this scene, let alone use this opportunity to let the Devil Clan return. The 100-change Star Lord did not care about the demands of the inner demons. Now, he only had eyes for the bronze coffin. How could this be? How could this be? Tang Jing muttered to himself, as if he was possessed. The Empyrean Fairy and Linger stood on either side of him worriedly. They shook his arm and asked, "What did you see?" Tang Jing turned a deaf ear to them and continued to exclaim, "Too inconceivable, too inconceivable." The 100-change Star Lord finally could not take it anymore. His heart felt like it was being clawed by a cat. In a flash, he rushed toward the bronze coffin. The Empyrean Fairy also wanted to rush over, but she was half a beat slower. The 100-change Star Lord also stood in the air above the bronze coffin. A pair of big eyes stared at it without blinking. His whole body shook violently, and his face became extremely ugly. He muttered to himself, "How could it be me? How could it be me?" The Empyrean Fairy was confused. Finally, she rushed over and took a closer look. A familiar face came into view. There was a person lying in the bronze coffin. She was very lifelike, and her face was ruddy. The most inconceivable thing was that she was the Empyrean Fairy. The Empyrean Fairy felt like she was looking into a mirror. Seeing a person who looked exactly like her lying in the bronze coffin, she was afraid that anyone would be stimulated. She was alive and well, so why was she lying in the bronze coffin? Moreover, this bronze coffin had been buried here for many years. If someone had found an identical person and placed her inside, it could not be so coincidental. The Empyrean Fairy shook her head and took a few steps back. She muttered to herself, "Impossible, what is going on?" Tang Jing, the Empyrean Fairy and the 100-change Star Lord all had the same reaction. Ling also wanted to go over and see what was going on, but Tang Jing stopped her and said, "Don't go." Ling stared at Tang Jing with her big black eyes and asked, "Master, what is inside that made the three of you have such a big reaction?" Tang Jing swallowed his saliva and hesitated for a long time. Then he said, "There is a person who looks exactly like me inside." Tang Jing suspected that one of them was a celestial who just so happened to look exactly like him. But there was no such coincidence in this world. Ling covered her mouth and cried out in alarm, "Master, you are alive and standing here. How can it be you inside?" Chapter 844. The 9 Heavens Mystical Maiden and the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign both looked as if they had seen a ghost as they stared at Tang Jing without blinking. "You said you were in the bronze coffin." Tang Jing looked at the two of them blankly and nodded subconsciously. Yes, he saw it clearly. Could it be wrong? The Empyrean Fairy had an idea and asked the 100 Faces Star Lord, "What did you see?" "Myself." The 100 Faces Star Lord hesitated for a moment and said truthfully. The Empyrean Fairy's mouth twitched and muttered, "I also saw myself." Immediately, the three of them felt a headache. Why did the three of them see themselves in the bronze coffin? There was clearly only one person lying there, so why were there 3 faces? It was not only the face, but every part of the body was exactly the same as them. How could they be wrong? The three of them were deep in thought, but they could not figure it out. Tian Chanzi's body was steaming with black gas, making him look extremely sinister. He laughed strangely and said, "I told you not to open the bronze coffin. You are courting death, so you can't blame others. Tang Jing stared at Tian Chanzi and said, 100 Faces Star-Lord, didn't you say that Tian Chanzi would recover if we opened the bronze coffin? Why is he still like this? The 100 Faces Star-Lord was at a loss and said, how would I know? That jade-like naughty face, coupled with that aggrieved expression, was especially confusing. If it was anyone else, they would definitely treat him as a harmless child. Tang Jing, however, would not be blinded by this, and said, no matter what is inside, in short, there is a problem. Tian Chanzi said with certainty that they were dead, so how could they just sit there and wait for death? The 100 Faces Star-Lord heard this and his face suddenly sank. He waved his small hand and a bloody light rushed towards the bronze coffin. No matter who was inside, he had to make the first move and kill them. Tian Chanzi did not stop him, but looked at them with a cold smile. The bloody light rushed into the bronze coffin, but nothing happened. The wind was calm and the waves were calm. The silence was a bit excessive. The 100 Faces Star-Lord's face changed slightly. He was very clear about the power of his attack, but it was like throwing a stone into the sea. There was no reaction at all, not even a ripple. He did not give up and wanted to attack again, but there was a sound from the bronze coffin. Immediately, everyone was shocked. Could it be that there was a living thing inside? Tian Chanzi said with a sinister smile, you are all dead. Their faces were filled with indignation. Were they doomed? It was too early to make a conclusion. Someone in the bronze coffin stood up. There were 3 people. Tang Jing, the Empyrean Fairy, and the 100 Faces Star-Lord. The 3 of them looked exactly the same as them. Even the 100 Faces Star Sovereign, who was good at transformation, could not help but feel his eyelids twitch. Just a mere illusion. See how? See. He roared loudly and madly attacked the person who looked exactly like him. Bang! He directly attacked his opponent's body, but his opponent didn't move at all. Instead, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth as he looked at him with an evil aura. Even though the 100 Faces Star-Lord was experienced and had a strong mind, he could not help but tremble when he saw this. What are you? The 100 Faces Star-Lord looked at him and smiled. He did not say a word and continued to walk toward him. Faced with this strange situation, the 100 Faces Star-Lord was furious. He roared, I don't believe I can't deal with you. In an instant, he unleashed all of his skills, and all of his powerful moves were thrown at his opponent. But everything was like a stone sinking into the sea. There was no reaction at all. The other 2 people also walked toward their opponents. The Empyrean Fairy saw herself walking over and subconsciously took a few steps back. She did not attack rashly. Instead, she observed her opponent's actions, hoping to figure out what was going on and find a flaw. But she found that it was almost wishful thinking. She did not find any flaw. On the other hand, although Tang Jing was panicking, when he saw himself getting closer and closer, that trace of panic was unknowingly suppressed. He narrowed his eyes and stared at the other party. He found that the closer the other party got, the blurrier it became. When he was only a meter away from Tang Jing, he could not see his appearance clearly. He could not tell that it was himself. What's going on? Tang Jing subconsciously turned his head to look at the other 2. Their reactions were completely different from his. The 100 Faces Star-Lord was attacking relentlessly, while the Empyrean Fairy was dodging. She did not want to come into direct contact with herself. Only he was the quietest, especially when he saw the blurry image. He was sure that although he did not know what was going on, his situation was completely different from the other 2. Something must have gone wrong. The blurry shadow continued to walk toward him. Tang Jing could no longer sit still and watch. The war soul in his hand blazed. Whiz! He slashed at the opponent. Ew! A sharp roar rang out, and the shadow began to transform rapidly. Why aren't you affected? Tang Zhang's heart moved. Could it be that this was the voice of that terrifying thing? It did sound strange, but when he looked at the others, they did not have the slightest reaction. It was as if they did not hear this voice at all. Strange. Tang Zhang did not know why he was not affected. Instead, he said with a firm expression, "What exactly are you? How can you bewitch people?" Tang Zhang could already confirm that the three of them saw him in the bronze ball was an illusion. It was just that the illusion was too realistic. Even the 100 Faces Starlord could not distinguish it. But why was it that when the other party walked out of the bronze coffin, especially when they were closer to him, the illusion did not work? Tang Zhang was puzzled, but without a doubt, this was a good sign. Without the influence of the illusion, he could wholeheartedly deal with the other party. He could still see the predicament of the 100 Faces Starlord and the Empyrean Fairy, so he loudly reminded them not to panic. However, he found that no one could hear him. It was as if he was isolated from the world. Although he could clearly see everything around him, it was as if he was not a person of this world. It was close at hand, but far away at the end of the world. What kind of magic did you use? Tang Zhang angrily asked. The shadow circled around Tang Zhang. Tang Zhang sternly waited, not daring to slack off. He tightly gripped the war soul in his hand, his palms slowly dripping with cold sweat. Finally, the shadow opened its mouth and said in realization, "I finally understand. You do not have inner demons, so you are not affected." Inner demons. Tang Zhang's head moved. He remembered the mirror he saw on the 4th floor of the Langya Pavilion. Wasn't the exorcist mirror an item to expel the inner demons? In the Langya Pavilion, his inner demons had been dispelled, so his cultivation speed was faster and he could focus more. However, he did not expect that there would be a pleasant surprise. Even the 100 Faces Starlord and the Empyrean Fairy were affected. He was the only one who was slightly affected at first, but in the end, he was completely fine. In this point, he surpassed the two experts. Who exactly are you? Why don't you have inner demons? The shadow asked incredulously. Tang Zhang sneered, and who are you? You can actually control people's inner demons. Ha ha ha. A series of strange laughter sounded. Who am I? I am the person everyone is afraid of. That's why they imprisoned me here. What a bunch of cowards. Who imprisoned you? You wouldn't know even if I told you. If I see them again, I will definitely tear them into pieces. No, I will let them kill each other. I will watch the show from the side. The shadow laughed wildly. Tang Zhang's heart jumped. This shadow spoke mysteriously, but it didn't seem to be deliberately mystifying, which meant that he was definitely not an ordinary ruthless character. Moreover, this prehistoric heavenly tomb had existed since ancient times, and had already existed for tens of thousands of years. Then, this shadow must have been imprisoned here even earlier. There were many experts in that era, so he couldn't guess who had imprisoned him. You keep saying that others are cowards, but until now, you still haven't revealed your true face. You only know how to brag. Do you dare to say your name? Tang Zhang provoked. Who am I? Of course I won't forget, and there's no need to be mysterious. As long as they hear my name, everyone will be scared silent, or even scared out of their wits. The shadow said confidently. Then tell me. Listen up, I am the most powerful person in the world, inner demons. The shadow said firmly. Inner demons? Tang Zhang was startled. Are you scared? The inner demons were proud of themselves. Tang Zhang wasn't scared at all, he was confused. He reacted as if he had just woken up from a dream and said, Tisk, you're scared. You think too highly of yourself. What? You're not scared. Have you never heard of my illustrious name? The inner demons was very surprised and shouted, "Forgive me for my shallow knowledge, but I have never heard of your name." Tang Jing used the exorcist mirror to expel his own inner demons, but he had never heard of any expert in this world called inner demons. "Impossible, my inner demons is very famous. Everyone in the world knows about it, how could you not have heard of it?" The inner demons were unconvinced and said angrily. Tang Jing snorted disdainfully, "You're just bragging about yourself." "Nonsense, my inner demons don't need to brag about themselves. If I wasn't so powerful, how could I be imprisoned here?" "Humph, everyone has their inner demons, and I can control their inner demons and thus control everyone. Do you think they won't be afraid of me?" Tang Zhang's head dropped. This person's words were so convincing that it didn't seem like he was lying. It was true that everyone had their inner demons, but to control someone's inner demons was a bit of a fantasy. But there was nothing absolute in this world, and everything was possible. If this person could really control the inner demons, then he could indirectly control everyone. This was indeed a heaven-defying ability, and this person was a heaven-defying existence. He wasn't like other experts. Other experts could destroy others, but they couldn't completely control others. This person could control others and use them for himself. Chapter 845. You're the weirdest. You don't have inner demons and aren't affected by me. I shouldn't let a person like you live in this world. The inner demon said fiercely. I don't have inner demons in my body. You can't control me, so how are you going to kill me? There's no need for me to do it myself. If someone does it, as long as I control the two of them, do you think you can still survive with your cultivation? The inner demon said proudly. Tang Zhang's head trembled. It was indeed so. As long as either the Empyrean Fairy or the 100 Faces Star Lord fell into the control of the inner demons, then Tang Zhang would definitely not be able to get anything out of it. Seeing that the two of them were not in a good situation, Tang Zhang knew that he could no longer stand by and watch. The first thing he had to do was to break through this strange illusion. Break for me. Tang Zhang bellowed, holding on to the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrow in his hands. The bowstring trembled, and the shooting sun arrow shot out into the sky. Heaven-shocking bow, shooting sun arrow. The inner demons actually recognized the two divine weapons at a glance and exclaimed. Tang Zhang laughed coldly, only to hear a shattering sound. The scene in front of his eyes changed, creating circles of ripples. The shooting sun arrow unimpeded struck the rock wall, causing rocks to fly everywhere. The scene in front of him changed, and Tang Zhang actually realized that the 100 Faces Star Lord was already on the verge of death, and was actually attacking the air non-stop. And the Empyrean Fairy was also continuously dodging. There was no one in front of him. There was no second 100 Faces Star Lord or Empyrean Fairy in this canyon, and even the shadow in front of Tang Zhang had disappeared without a trace. Tang Zhang was flabbergasted, so everything from before was an illusion, created by the inner demons controlling people's hearts, so no matter how the 100 Faces Star Lord attacked, it would not have any effect. This was because he was attacking the air. As for the Empyrean Fairy, no matter how she dodged, that imaginary self would always follow her like a shadow, because it was an illusion constructed by her heart. Tang Zhang's head trembled. Looking at this scene, he was deeply shocked. No wonder the inner demons were so confident. He really did have the strength. Even experts like the 100 Faces Star Lord and the Empyrean Fairy had only taken a glance inside the bronze coffin, and they had been tricked by him. As for Ling, and Little White, they looked at this scene with curiosity. They didn't look into the bronze coffin, so they weren't affected. You people. Inner demons. You people, the inner demons. You will suffer the consequences of your own actions. Everything was happening right under his nose. He was powerless. From the moment the bronze coffin was opened, he could do nothing. His power was quickly draining away. Suddenly, he looked at the culprit of all this, Tang Zhang. If he had not opened the coffin without permission, then none of this would have happened. But when he looked at Tang Jing, he was shocked and shouted, "You! Why are you not affected?" Tang Zheng looked at Tian Chanzi with a complicated expression and said, "Tian Chanzi, get better quickly. I am Tang Zheng." Tian Chanzi looked at Tang Jing coldly and said, "Tang Jing, why are you not affected by the inner demons?" "My inner demons have been eliminated. They can't affect me." Tian Chanzi stared at Tang Jing in disbelief and exclaimed, "The inner demons have been eliminated. How did you do it?" Tang Jing did not answer and said, "You are not Tian Chanzi. Why did you take over his body? Leave him quickly. You still have the time to care about him. Your top priority is to deal with the inner demons. If the inner demons appear, not only will you die, but the world will also be in chaos." Tian Chanzi said solemnly. Tang Zheng said that Tian Chanzi's words were reasonable. They had to deal with the inner demons first. Otherwise, if they let him control anyone and escape, then it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. It was almost impossible to find him. However, whether it was the 100 Faces Star Lord or the Empyrean Fairy, he was no match for them. So, he turned his eyes and stared at the bronze coffin. He rushed toward the bronze coffin with big strides. Tian Chanzi looked at his actions and did not stop him. He sighed in his heart. Success or failure depended on this one move. If there was no Tang Jing, an anomaly without the inner demons, this would be a dead end. No one would be able to escape. With such an anomaly, there might be a ray of hope. "Master, be careful." Linger was scared stiff. The changes in the scene were beyond her imagination. Tang Jing nodded slightly. Just as he was about to rush to the bronze coffin, a huge body blocked his way. A giant. He actually came to block Tang Jing and howled. He was not affected, so he was still anxious to carry out the 100 Faces Star Lord's order to not let Tang Jing get close to the bronze coffin. "Get out of my way!" Tang Jing hysterically roared. Time was of the essence and could not be delayed, but this big guy still blocked his way without hesitation. He was really unlucky. The giant was indifferent. Instead, he kicked at him. The wind was biting cold, and a huge pressure fell from the sky. Tang Zheng was angry and anxious. He drew his bow and shot the shooting sun arrow directly at the giant's foot. Pfft! Blood splattered. The shooting sun arrow directly penetrated the giant's foot. The giant was in pain. He howled and staggered back. Tang Zheng took advantage of this good opportunity. His body flashed, and he went around the giant, arriving in front of the bronze coffin. Indeed, there was a person lying in the bronze coffin. This person's face was ruddy and handsome. He was a middle-aged uncle whose appearance was not inferior to the 100 Faces Star Lord. His originally tightly shut eyes suddenly opened, and his pair of eyes seemed to have a soul-sucking demonic power as he stared straight at Tang Jing. Tang Jing felt as if his soul was about to leave his body. He hurriedly channeled his energy and guarded his mind. Although he did not have the inner demons, his heart was still stirred by the other's eyes. It was enough to show the other's strength. "You want to kill me?" The inner demon stood up. He was dressed in ancient clothing. His black hair fluttered in the wind. The corner of his mouth hung an incomparably mysterious smile. "So this is the true face of the inner demons," Tang Zheng said fiercely. "I do want to kill you. You intimidate people's souls. You must die." The inner demons laughed disapprovingly. "If I was so easy to kill, then they could have just killed me back then. Why would they go through so much trouble to imprison me here?" Tang Zhang's head thumped. The inner demons' words were reasonable. The ancient people were so powerful that they could only imprison each other. This meant that the inner demons could not be casually killed. But seeing the inner demons in front of him and the war soul sword could pierce his chest at any time, Tang Jing felt that he could not let go of this great opportunity. The Empyrean fairy was hanging by a thread. If he did not make a move, then the inner demons would control her. No matter what, this was a result that Tang Jing could not accept. What are you waiting for? Kill him with one strike. Tian Chanzi urged. The inner demons looked at Tian Chanzi with a smile and said, "You are a remnant soul left behind by that person. Now you are attached to this person's body in an attempt to stop them from opening the bronze coffin. Unfortunately, you still failed." Tian Chanzi's expression kept changing. He did not say a word. The inner demon looked around and stared at the deep and terrifying cliff, saying, "You used the place with the densest evil qi to imprison me. It's a pity that the evil qi has consumed a lot of my power over the years. But as long as I come out, this world will still be mine." Tang Jing muttered in his heart. Previously, the 100 Faces Star Lord said that he had to pull the bronze coffin up to open it. Now it seemed that pulling it up was more serious than opening the coffin at the bottom of the canyon. Could it be that the 100 Faces Star Lord was deceived by the demon clan? The demon clan did not tell them the truth. Once the bronze coffin was pulled up, without the suppression of the baleful yin qi, the inner demons would become stronger. This was equivalent to helping the inner demons. The 100 Faces Star Lord was indeed deceived by the demon clan. The demon clan was incomparably cunning. Although the 100 Faces Star Lord helped them return, how could they easily believe him? Therefore, they used a fact and not a lie to deceive him. It was a pity that the demon clan's luck was not good. Before they could open the coffin, they were all killed by Tian Chanzi. Of course, the demon clan knew the power of the inner demons. This was a very risky operation, but the demon clan had another plan. The demon clan planned to all submit to the inner demons and follow this powerful new master to expand their territory. It would not take long for the entire world to belong to the demon clan. This was a huge sacrifice. However, the demon clan in the sky beyond sky was not as strong as before. They had no choice but to make this plan. However, as long as the demon clan's power and glory could be guaranteed, they were willing to worship the inner demons as their masters. It had to be said that the demon clan did not play by the rules. They were willing to make such a huge sacrifice. Of course, once they succeeded, the rewards would be huge. Unifying the world was a magnificent feat that countless generations of the demon clan had not been able to achieve. If Tang Jing knew the whole story, he would probably be amazed by the boldness and strangeness of the current master of the demon clan. Of course, the demon clan was dead, and no one knew about this. Looking at the complacent inner demons, Tang Jing gnashed his teeth and said, "Why are you talking so much nonsense? You think I don't dare to kill you, right? Then you are completely wrong. Go to hell." Tang Jing stabbed out with his sword. "No!" A cry of alarm came from Tian Chanzi's mouth. This was Tian Chanzi's original voice. Tang Jing was startled, but it was too late. The war soul sword pierced the inner demon's chest. Fresh blood gushed out and dyed the war soul sword red. The inner demons did not resist or even dodge. Tang Jing found it inconceivable. The inner demons were so strong, they should at least have some dodging movements. Like a puppet, they allowed the war soul sword to pierce their chest. This was too strange. Tang Jing had a bad premonition. "Why didn't you dodge?" The inner demon said indifferently, "My combat ability is not strong. I am inferior to you. How can I dodge? I might as well take your sword." Tang Jing scratched his head, but he could not guess the inner demon's plan. "If you don't fight back, won't you die?" Chapter 846. The inner demons did not close his eyes, and his smile made Tang Jing very uneasy. Just as he was about to pull out Battle Soul, he found that the inner demon's hands were firmly holding onto the sword, and blood flowed down his palm. "Tang Jing, you fell into his trap, quickly let go." Tian Chanzi's voice sounded again, this time it was still Tian Chanzi himself. Obviously, the remnant soul attached to his body was weakening, and he was worried about Tang Zheng's safety, so he temporarily seized control of his body. Tang Zheng glanced at Tian Chanzi from the corner of his eyes, and found that his face was full of regret. Suddenly, Tian Chanzi's face changed, and he became incomparably cold. He had lost control of his body again, and he said resolutely, Tang Zheng, you don't have the inner demons, so you have a chance to live. Remember, guard your mind, and don't let him control you. Do you think it's that easy? The inner demons laughed disapprovingly, and his hands let go of Battle's soul, and fell straight down. His eyes were wide open, and there was no sign of life. Tang Zheng did not understand what was going on, but his mind suddenly trembled, and he felt that his soul was out of his body, as if this body was no longer his, and his original soul was about to be squeezed out. He quickly remembered Tian Chanzi's warning, and quickly circulated his energy, guarding his mind. Do you think this is enough to shut me out? A voice sounded in Tang Zheng's mind, making him quiver, and he almost shouted in fear. Fortunately, Tian Chanzi had been in his mind for a long time, and he had experience, so he was not scared to the point of being at a loss. It turned out that the inner demons did not die, but ran into his body. No matter what method he used, in short, Tang Zheng was in big trouble. Now you should know why no one dares to kill me, right? The inner demon said proudly. Tang Zheng suddenly realized that it was no wonder that he was only imprisoned here and not killed. It turned out that killing him had to pay such a big price. It was easy to destroy his body, but his soul would attach to the body of the person who killed him, thus taking control of the person's body. This was not killing the inner demons, but sacrificing oneself, so no one was willing to take this risk. Looks like you're a smart person. You've already guessed it. It's very easy to kill me, and there are many ways. But no matter what method you use, it doesn't matter whether it's long range or short range. As long as you kill me, my soul will possess his body and take over his body. Tell me, is there anyone in this world who would sacrifice themselves to do such a stupid thing? Moreover, this can't really kill me, just let me change my body. The inner demon's voice was full of pride, mockery, and ridicule, which made Tang Zheng shudder. It turned out that the inner demons were so powerful, no wonder Tian Chanzi said that it would be a huge catastrophe if he released him. He was an immortal monster, and even if his body died, his soul could be passed on indefinitely. How did such a heaven-defying existence come into being? Tang Zheng was really curious, and had an impulse to find the source, but now he could not even protect himself. Your body is not bad, I am very satisfied. In the future, I will let your body witness my glory, you should feel honored. It's an honor, you big-headed ghost. Tang Zheng could not help but scold, you want to take over my body and control it? No way, my inner demons have been eliminated, let's see what you can do. The inner demons have been eliminated. If it was like what they did, I really could not do anything to you, but you are courting death by killing me, so let me take over your body. Without the inner demons, I can still control you. Tang Zheng felt a chill in his heart. Even a wise man would make a mistake. He only wanted to save people, but he did not expect that he would lose his advantage, and the inner demons would take advantage of him. He subconsciously looked at Tian Chanzi. Perhaps he was also aware of this, but he still urged him to kill the inner demons. This was to let him take a risk, because if he could not defeat the inner demons, then the inner demons could get away with it. If he was lucky enough to suppress the inner demons, then he would have a chance to live. Tang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry, but now there was no way to escape, so he could only fight with all his might to see if he could fight for that glimmer of hope. I advise you not to waste your efforts, otherwise, it is not a wise decision to try endless torture in the last moments of your life, the inner demons advised. Tang Zheng coldly snorted, how can I be scared by your few words? Until the last moment, I will not give up so easily. It is still not clear who will win. The ignorant are not afraid. Then I will show you my power, and let you have a taste of what it feels like to live a life worse than death. After the inner demons finished speaking, Tang Jing felt a pain that he had never experienced before in his mind, and then it spread to his limbs, bones, and 8 extraordinary meridians. It was as if his soul was being pulled out of his body. This kind of pain was not only deep in his bones, but also deep in his soul. The pain from his soul made his whole body tremble, and with a plop, he fell to the ground, twitching non-stop. Ling saw this scene and turned pale with fright. She quickly guarded him and asked anxiously, "Master, how are you, Master?" Heaven Monk had mixed feelings as he advised, "Miss, you don't have to be anxious, everything has its own destiny." If he really obtained that glimmer of hope, then he would have saved this world. Otherwise, all of you will be destroyed together with him, it's just a matter of time. Ling suddenly raised her head and stared at Tian Chanzi. "I am willing to die for Master." Your courage is commendable, but this is not a problem that can be solved by dying in his place. Don't worry, if he fails, you will soon die, and you will be reunited. Tian Chanzi laughed strangely. "Get out of my body." Another voice burst out from Tian Chanzi's throat. "You finally can't wait anymore. Don't worry, I am just borrowing your body, I will not hurt you. The inner demons are the most important. I will not give up until I see the final result. I have guarded the bronze coffin for so many years, and I thought that everything would be peaceful, that the inner demons and I would disappear in the vast river of history. I did not expect that the situation would be disturbed by you people, so if there are any serious consequences, it will be your own fault. But you should not harm Tang Jing, he is innocent. Since he does not have inner demons, if he did not kill the inner demons, then he would not be in danger," the real Tian Chanzi retorted. Maybe this is the will of the heavens to let him, a person without inner demons, appear here. This is his destiny, he cannot escape, I am just following orders. What a glib tongue, nonsense. Ling looked at Tian Chanzi talking to himself and almost broke down. Tears flowed out of her eyes, and she looked at her master who was lying on the ground in pain and started crying. Squeak squeak. Xiao Bai also circled around Tang Jing, trying to think of a solution, but there was nothing he could do. His eyes were full of worry. As for the Empyrean Fairy and the 100 Faces Star-Lord, they were almost exhausted. They were still trapped in the illusion, fighting or hiding from themselves. The giant's tall body was just a decoration. He was at a loss, looking at everything in a daze. Although he was big, his brain was not very good. The cold wind blew, and the bottom of the canyon was very strange. If an ordinary person saw this scene, they would be scared silly. Tang Jing was still twitching and struggling. The muscles on his face were almost twisted together, and he even looked a little ferocious. Inside his body, a battle that could not be seen was silently going on. Back and forth, it was a battle of slaughter, and the battlefield itself was suffering from all kinds of torment. But Tang Jing was still firmly holding on to his last trace of consciousness. Although he was forced back step by step, he still did not give up. Don't struggle in vain. You are not my match. Let go and willingly accept all of this. The inner demon's voice seemed to have a magical power, guiding Tang Jing patiently. Tang Jing clenched his teeth, refusing to compromise. He constantly circulated his energy, and true qi flowed through his body. Only then was he able to maintain his body's vitality and prevent himself from completely collapsing. If I didn't want to take over your body, perhaps I could have kept you as my servant. That's because you really do have character. It's no wonder you have such a cultivation base at such a young age. Even in the entire world, your talent is one of the best. Oh, that's not right. You're actually a celestial. The 9 yang saint body. I've really picked up a treasure. This talent is 1 in 1,000, 1 in 1,000 years. I've heard there are also many mysterious profundities. Once I take over your body, I'll slowly discover them. The inner demons acted as if they had discovered a new continent and became excited. With this body of yours, my shortcomings will be made up for. My physical body's strength will greatly increase. In the future, no one will be able to kill me. That way, I'll be even safer. After all, every time I take over someone's body, it's not a simple matter. The inner demon's endless chatter caused Tang Zheng's heart to sink to the bottom. He was the one directly involved, so he had the deepest feeling. He had no choice but to multitask. On one hand, he had to resist the torturous pain of his body. On the other, he had to resist the inner demon's attack on his soul. Tang Zheng had already been forced back step by step. The inner demons had already reached his heart. That beating heart and rapidly flowing blood was Tang Zheng's final fortress. If he allowed the inner demons to invade his heart, then he would truly be defeated. There would be no turning back. His soul would disappear and his life would truly come to an end. I can already see the heart. This heart is truly powerful. I can feel its surging life force. This is the heart I want. The heart of my inner demons should be this powerful, ha ha ha. Don't be delusional. This is mine. Don't even think about taking it away. Tang Zheng retorted. Ha, let's see how you'll protect it. As soon as the inner demons finished speaking, a mysterious energy rushed toward the heart. It attempted to wrap around the heart and attack it. Tang Zheng resisted with all his might, but he was forced back step by step. In the end, a strand of the inner demon's soul broke through Tang Zheng's defenses and rushed into the heart with unstoppable momentum. In an instant, all of Tang Zheng's defenses collapsed. His heart was firmly occupied by the inner demons. Chapter 847. Losing control of his heart, Tang Zheng screamed in pain. He felt his soul leaving his body. The inner demon's arrogant laughter was extremely ear-piercing. Ha! Why can't I completely occupy this heart? Suddenly, the inner demon's voice sounded again. It was bewildered. What's wrong with your heart? The inner demon's voice suddenly rose and screamed. Although Tang Zheng felt very uncomfortable, he was not scared out of his wits. That trace of sobriety made him realize that the situation had taken a turn for the better. Heart. Could it be that Qiyu's heart was working? For a long time, Qiyu's heart did not respond. Tang Zheng almost forgot that his heart was Qiyu's heart. Qiyu's heart was extremely mysterious. It had helped him to escape danger many times. Qiyu's heart, if you can really fight against the inner demons, then quickly show yourself. Otherwise, I'm going to die. As if it had heard his thoughts, Qiyu's heart began to beat rapidly. A mysterious force surged out of the heart. What's wrong with this heart? The mental devil shrieked at the top of its lungs. Are you trying to swallow me? Dream on. The inner demons had never encountered such a situation. In the past, he had taken over other people's bodies to extend his life. But everything happened naturally without any obstacles. This time, because Tang Zheng did not have the inner demons, there were many obstacles in the beginning. Now, they had broken through his defenses and entered his heart. He originally thought that he had succeeded, but now he realized that it was too early to be happy. There was still a mysterious force that firmly locked him in place. This force was somewhat familiar to him, but also somewhat fearful. I must have seen this force somewhere before. It's been too long. I can't remember it at the moment. Let me think, I must remember. The inner demons talked to himself. I remember now. Qiyu, this power is very similar to Qiyu's power. The inner demons suddenly realized. I was wondering how this person with such a weak cultivation could resist me. It turns out that he has the heart of Qiyu. Back then, Qiyu is also a celestial. That's why only this Tang Zheng is able to control Qiyu's heart. Inner demons, you actually want to compete with me? A dignified voice suddenly sounded. Tang Zheng shivered. This was the first time he had heard this voice. Just by listening to it, he felt an indescribable pressure. If it was an ordinary person, they would have knelt on the ground with a thud. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth as he listened to the two voices in his body. He felt that it was a bit absurd, and he was also a bit scared. It turned out that Qiyu's heart was not an inanimate object. It actually had a consciousness. This was a hidden force that he had not sensed. Now that he thought about it, at the critical moment, Qiyu's heart had controlled his body. This was actually an extremely dangerous matter. Since Qiyu's heart could control him for a moment, then perhaps it could control him for a lifetime. Wasn't he being possessed? What was the difference between this and being possessed by the inner demons? It turned out that there was a ticking time bomb hidden in his body, but he was muddle-headed and did not know about it. His heart was ice-cold as if he had fallen into a bottomless abyss. This Qiyu's heart had always been hidden. Just why? His mind was a mess. For a moment, he could not figure out the reason. He could only quietly listen to the conversation between the two voices, hoping to gain something. Qiyu, I have yet to seek revenge for the past. I never thought that I would meet you again today. I thought that I would never have the chance to seek revenge in this lifetime. Now that I have the chance, I will devour you. The famous Qiyu will also die in my hands. This is a great honor. The inner demons laughed wildly. Back then, when I joined forces with the Yellow Emperor, I did not kill you. Instead, I imprisoned you. What a huge mistake, I actually let you live to the end. The Qiyu's heart said. Kill me. Do you dare? You joined forces with the Yellow Emperor, but you could not do anything to me. All you could do was imprison me. Does this show how afraid you are of death? The inner demon snorted. Tang Zheng was shocked. It turned out that the people who imprisoned the inner demons were Qiyu and the Yellow Emperor. In other words, before the Battle of Zhuolu, Qiyu and the Yellow Emperor were not sworn enemies. They even joined forces to fight against the inner demons. Perhaps something happened later that led to the war between the two great masters and the two tribes. Even if I am afraid of death, I will not be afraid of you. Inner demons, I could not deal with you back then, but things are different now. Do you think that I can't deal with you? The inner demons sneered, how can you deal with me? Back then, we all had inner demons. Even if we used all kinds of methods to expel the inner demons and suppress the inner demons, in the end, the inner demons were not completely expelled. Therefore, we would be at a great disadvantage against you. But now, the owner of this body does not have a trace of the inner demons. With this condition, do you still think that you are my match? The inner demons fell silent. The atmosphere became a little heavy. Suddenly, the inner demon said, I admit that what you said is reasonable, but you are only a remnant soul of the Qiyu from back then. You are no longer as powerful as before. Otherwise, why would you hide in this young man's body instead of directly occupying it? Therefore, don't boast too early. The outcome of the battle is not yet known. Tang Zheng fell to the bottom of the valley. It seemed that the Qiyu's heart really wanted to possess him, but now it was not strong enough. He thought that obtaining the heart of the Qiyu was a great opportunity, but now it seemed that it was not an opportunity, but a bomb that could explode at any time. No, I can't just sit and wait for death. If the inner demons win, then I will have no chance to live. If the inner demons lose, I must guard against the heart of the Qiyu and think of ways to deal with it or destroy it. Tang Zheng made up his mind and began to think about how to deal with the heart of the Qiyu. There was no doubt that as long as he destroyed the remnant soul of the Qiyu, he would be safe. As for the heart of the Qiyu, he could not kill it as well. If he did, then he would not be able to live. Since you don't want to give up, then I will let you know how powerful I am. After the heart of the Chiyu finished speaking, an invisible force immediately wrapped around the inner demons. Tang Jing only felt that the scene in front of him changed. The valley disappeared, and so did everyone else. He had actually magically arrived at a battlefield. On the battlefield, banners were fluttering, and dark clouds were pressing down. The two sides of the battle had already set up their chariots and horses. Under the command of two generals riding mighty strange beasts, both sides charged at each other. This is definitely not a normal battle in ancient times, and it is not a scene from a movie. It is too realistic, too shocking, and no special effects can compare to it. The two sides of the battle were not only humans, but also demonic beasts. Moreover, the mounts of the humans were very strange and extraordinary. They were all demonic beasts. Most demonic beasts were violent by nature. These people could actually tame demonic beasts, which showed how powerful they were. In addition, there were also giants. The giants were hundreds of meters tall, but they were not invincible on the battlefield. Some of them were even directly killed by some normal humans. Of course, there were two people who attracted the most attention on the battlefield. These two people were at the very front, and they were the generals of both sides. They were both extraordinarily powerful individuals, and with just a glance, people would feel reverence in their hearts. Some even prostrated themselves on the ground. The battle between these two people could be said to be earth-shattering. The earth cracked under their attacks, turning into valleys, mountains into plains, and plains into bottomless pits. This was simply the power to destroy the heavens and the earth. Tang Zheng's breathing couldn't help but quicken. Compared to these people, his own ability was simply not enough. He was afraid that in a few rounds, he would die on the battlefield. The cycle of the sun and the moon, day and night alternated, but the battle still did not stop. In the end, after an unknown amount of time, one side was finally defeated and gradually retreated. In order to buy time for his clansmen to retreat, the general of that side resolutely resisted the enemy's overwhelming attacks by himself. In the end, a portion of his clansmen finally escaped, and he died of exhaustion. His heart was dug out, and although it left his body, it was still beating non-stop. Tang Jing felt a pain in his heart, and the illusion in front of him disappeared. He suddenly realized that this battle might have really happened in history. It was the famous Battle of Zhuolu. The two generals who had the power to destroy the world were Qi Yu and the Yellow Emperor. The person who was defeated and had his heart dug out was Qi Yu, and that heart was Qi Yu's heart. However, why was he seeing a battle from tens of thousands of years ago for no reason? He was like a bystander, clearly watching the earth-shattering battle. His heart stirred. All of this was probably related to Qi Yu's heart and the inner demons. What happened to these two guys? Tang Jing suddenly remembered that he did not hear their voices. Everything was eerily silent. However, the pain in his body seemed to have disappeared. Could it be that the inner demons had been eliminated? Before he could rejoice, the inner demon's voice sounded. It was hysterical and abnormally angry. Qi Yu, you damned bastard. You didn't kill me back then, and now you actually used this youth's body to defeat me. I can't accept this. Inner demons, you're really lucky that I didn't completely kill you. Qi Yu's remnant soul was also unwilling. You want to completely kill me? Do you have the ability? Back then, you and the Yellow Emperor couldn't completely kill me even when you joined forces, much less now. If it wasn't for this youth, you would have been devoured by me. How would you have the right to speak? Tang Jing listened to the two's argument, but his body did not feel anything strange. He could not help but be curious and asked, "What's going on? Why did I see the scene of the Battle of Zhuolu just now?" The inner demons laughed. Just now, Qi Yu lost his mind and naturally produced the scene of the Battle of Zhuolu. I finally understand why he lost to the Yellow Emperor. It's retribution. When he joined forces with the Yellow Emperor to deal with me, he never thought that he would be defeated by the Yellow Emperor one day. Ha! Shut up! Chiyu shouted angrily. Chapter 848. Tang Zhang was confused. I defeated the inner demons. What do you mean? The inner demon seemed to have seen through Tang Zhang's thoughts and said, You don't believe it, do you? Then I'll tell you the truth. Chiyu has the inner demons, so not only you, but he also fell into the illusion. Moreover, his murderous intent and resentment were very strong. If you didn't have the inner demons, you wouldn't have been confused by the illusion and controlled by it. You wouldn't have been angry and fell into the illusion and naturally withdrew. Once you withdrew from the illusion, you also withdrew with Chiyu, so you saved him and defeated me. Tang Jing didn't quite understand, but one thing was certain, and that was that he didn't have the inner demons, and it did play a huge role. Of course, Chiyu also played a role, because Chiyu's heart resisted the inner demons. In fact, the hearts of Tang Jing and Chiyu were like two locks. Both locks had to be opened at the same time for the inner demons to occupy Tang Zhang's body. Otherwise, no matter which lock he opened, he wouldn't be able to occupy Tang Zhang's body, which doomed him to failure. However, even if Chiyu wanted to completely kill the inner demons, he couldn't do it. After the two of them fought and tested each other's strength, they simply stopped attacking. The inner demons were very patient and carefully explained to Tang Zhang. He finally understood the whole story. He couldn't help but be secretly amazed. But he was also very distressed, because since the inner demons and Chiyu couldn't do anything to each other, didn't that mean that there would be two more souls in his body? He had already experienced the feeling of Tian Chanzi living in his body, and now he had so many secrets, he really didn't want the inner demons and Chiyu to know. Why are you living in my body? Why are you leaving my body? Tang Zhang said indignantly. Ha, I can't bear to leave your body. Who knows when I'll be able to take over your body? Celestial, 9-yang saint body, that's a 1 in 10,000 physiques. How could I give it up? Laughed the inner demons. Chiyu said, My heart and Chiyu's heart are one. If you want me to leave, then take out Chiyu's heart. Tang Jing rolled his eyes speechlessly. His own heart had long been swallowed by Chiyu's heart and fused into one. If his heart was dug out, how could he live? Therefore, these two would never leave his body no matter what. Tang Jing scratched his head in distress. Why am I so miserable? He cried. Humph, young man, I, the famous inner demons, am living in your body because I think highly of you. You don't know what's good for you, said the inner demons in a bad mood. Shut up. Tang Jing didn't have a good temper. No matter how great the other side's background was, he wasn't afraid. As soon as he said, shut up, the inner demons really didn't say anything. Tang Jing clicked his tongue in wonder. Ha, how obedient. Now I'll have much more peace. Tang Jing, you. Chiyu also seemed to have something to say. Tang Jing felt a lingering fear. Chiyu's remnant soul was like a ticking time bomb. Hearing his voice, he couldn't help but shiver. You shut up too. As expected, Chiyu's voice also disappeared. Without these two voices buzzing in his ears, Tang Jing felt much more relaxed. Hey, why are they so obedient? I said shut up and they didn't even say half a word. Suddenly, he realized something strange and asked, Hey, why aren't you two talking? Are you mute? There was still no reply. This made him feel incredulous. Could it be that something had happened just now? So they couldn't talk. These were two souls. Tang Jing couldn't observe what had happened to them. He couldn't help but recall the previous scene. He suddenly slapped his forehead and his eyes lit up. Could it be that I said shut up, so they can't talk? Although this idea was ridiculous, it was the only explanation. Hey! If that was the case, then he had the initiative and wouldn't be controlled by these two powerful souls. He could even control them to a certain extent. Open your mouth. He had a flash of inspiration and said. Phew, I'm suffocating. Young man, what did you do to stop me from talking? The inner demons asked angrily. Qiyu was also shocked and asked, Tang Jing, how did you do it? Tang Zheng's heart was in turmoil. He never thought that a blind cat would meet a dead mouse. He was actually right. He could really control these two souls. The inner demons were still angrily questioning, how dare you tell me to shut up? I'm a dignified inner demon. No one has ever dared to speak to me with such an attitude and tone. You're the first. I'll make you regret it for the rest of your life. Inner demons, shut your stinky mouth, Tang Jing scolded impatiently. There was dead silence. The inner demon's voice disappeared. Tang Jing couldn't help but feel that it was very interesting. However, in Qiyu's heart, this was a very serious matter. Tang Zhang's performance was far beyond his expectations. How did he do it? Even he was controlled by him. Tang Zhang, what's the matter with you? Qiyu still didn't give up and asked. Tang Jing rolled his eyes. How would I know? You're Qiyu. You're experienced and knowledgeable. Why don't you analyze it? Although he had seen how powerful Qiyu was in the illusion, he was now only a remnant soul. Moreover, he was living in Tang Zhang's body and hadn't shown it. This was very strange. Tang Zhang couldn't help but suspect that Qiyu had ulterior motives. He was probably plotting something. Therefore, he naturally didn't treat Qiyu well. Qiyu had silently lurked in Tang Zhang's body. He already knew everything about him. Therefore, he immediately heard a hint of displeasure. Just now, when you said those two words, there seemed to be a mysterious force that made me lose my ability to speak. As for what exactly happened, I really don't understand. Qiyu said. Tang Jing frowned suspiciously, guessing the authenticity of these words. In the end, he chose to believe these words because Qiyu didn't have to use this to lie to him. Moreover, there was still the inner demons. If Qiyu didn't say it, the inner demons would naturally say it in the future. Comparing the two, then they would know who was telling the truth. If Qiyu lied, then he would be risking Tang Zhang's anger. Qiyu was a smart person and wouldn't take this risk for no reason. Tang Jing muttered. When did his words have such great power? Just one sentence was enough to control these two souls. He still couldn't figure out the reason, but he was secretly glad. If he didn't have this ability, it would be strange if these two souls didn't annoy him to death. With this move, whoever didn't listen, he would shut them up. It worked. Inner demons, you can speak now. Tang Jing thought of this and showed great mercy. The inner demons finally understood that they were under someone else's roof and had to bow their heads. Although he was a very powerful person since ancient times, in front of Tang Jing, he still had to bow his head. Even if things have come to this, I still can't make you leave my body. Then the two of you should get along peacefully. You'd better be obedient. Otherwise, I won't be polite. Tang Jing sneered, just like how Grandmother Wolf faced Little Red Riding Hood. The two famous big shots were threatened by Tang Jing just like that, and no one would believe it even if it was said out loud. But Qiyu and the inner demons didn't dare to resist. Of course, Tang Jing could guess what they were thinking and didn't want to care. Tang Jing heaved a long sigh of relief and looked up, only to see that everyone was staring at him with burning eyes. Even the mysterious lady of the ninth heaven and the 100 transformation star sovereign had actually escaped from the illusion. In fact, since the inner demons failed to resist Qiyu, his influence on these two people had naturally ended. Now, the inner demons couldn't affect anyone at all. Unless he occupied Tang Zheng's body, otherwise, it was impossible for him to recover his previous magical power. The others didn't know this and were all staring at him intently. When they saw him look up, everyone's heart trembled. If he was an inner demon, then they would be in trouble. They wouldn't even have the chance to escape. The 100 Faces Star Lord's feelings were the most complicated. He had never taken Tang Jing seriously and even hated him to the bone. His good deeds had been ruined by him time and time again. This time, he narrowly escaped death. After knowing that the inner demons had entered Tang Zheng's body, the 100 Faces Star Lord rejoiced but also felt that it was inconceivable. How did this Tang Zheng do it? He didn't have the inner demons. This was almost impossible. For someone as powerful as the 100 Faces Star Lord, it wasn't that he didn't have the inner demons. It was just that he had been suppressed and couldn't let the inner demons gain the upper hand. The Empyrean fairy looked exhausted. Just now, she had used up a lot of energy to avoid herself. Now, looking at Tang Zheng's appearance, she didn't know where she got the information that Tang Zheng could turn danger into safety. As for Ling, although she looked very anxious, she was the most confident. She believed that her master would be fine. In her heart, her master was invincible and omnipotent. On the other hand, Tian Chanzi had 2 souls entangled in his body. The remnant soul wouldn't be satisfied until it saw the final result. As for Tian Chanzi, he was worried sick. Although he knew that Tang Jing usually had good luck, this was facing the inner demons. No matter how much he valued Tang Jing, he couldn't help but have little confidence. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Tang Jing asked with a strange expression. Master, you're fine." Ling was like a skylark, flying into Tang Zheng's arms. The others were so scared that their facial muscles twitched a few times. If the opponent was the inner demons, then Ling life would be in danger. Tang Zheng hugged Ling and smiled brightly. "Ling do you think something will happen to me?" Ling shook her head like a rattledrum and said, "Of course not. Ling has always believed that Master will be fine." "What inner demons? How could they be Master's match?" Tang Zheng heard this and laughed loudly. "Ling is the most obedient." After saying this, he turned and stared at the 100 Faces Star Sovereign. Being swept by his gaze, the 100 Faces Star Sovereign's heart trembled. This feeling was absurd, and it made him furious. He scolded, "Tang Jing, what are you looking at? Do you believe that I won't kill you?" Is that so? Then do you think you're a match for the inner demons?" Tang Jing deliberately asked mysteriously. "Inner demons?" The 100 Faces Star Sovereign's expression became unnatural. He said, "The inner demons no longer exist. Don't use them to scare me." Chapter 849. Tang Zheng's meaningful smile made the 100 Transformation Starlord's hair stand on end. That was because he really couldn't figure out what had happened to Tang Jing. Although Tang Jing still looked like the old Tang Jing, the existence of the inner demons was still unknown. If the inner demons hadn't been destroyed, then he would be in danger. The 100 Transformation Starlord had already experienced the power of the inner demons. He was both angry and afraid of this fellow. Tang Jing walked step by step towards the 100 Transformation Starlord. The 100 Transformation Starlord retreated in panic and shouted, "Stop, don't come any closer." Tang Jing smiled evilly and said, "Why, are you afraid? Don't come any closer." The 100 Transformation Starlord roared with all his might. "Hee, do you think I'll let you leave if I don't come any closer? My inner demons want to unify the world, and I still need a pawn like you. Once I control you, you can charge into the enemy lines for me." Tang Jing sneered. The 100 Transformation Starlord knew very well what it felt like to have his fate in the hands of others. Naturally, he wasn't willing to end up like this. He had just suffered a lot at the hands of the inner demons. Seeing Tang Zheng like this, he naturally didn't dare to suspect that Tang Zheng wasn't the inner demons. He had already concluded that the inner demons must have controlled Tang Zheng. After all, even with his cultivation, he couldn't contend against the inner demons, let alone a small Tang Zheng. Seeing Tang Zheng approaching, the 100 Transformation Star-Lord was burning with anxiety. He roared, "I won't let you succeed." He actually didn't attack Tang Zheng. Instead, he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and rushed into the sky. He stomped on the cliff a few times and fled towards the top of the canyon at lightning speed. "Stop right there!" Tang Zheng roared, scaring the 100 Transformation Star-Lords so much that he almost slipped and fell. Bang! With a loud bang, the entire canyon shook violently. The giant actually used both hands to grab onto the cliff and used all 4 limbs to climb out of the canyon. Seeing that the multiform Star-Lord and the giant had disappeared from the sky above the canyon, the corners of Tang Zheng's mouth curled into a smug smile. Hee hee. Tang Zheng laughed in a low voice. This multiform Star-Lord was really scared out of his wits by the inner demons. With just a few words, he actually managed to scare him into running away. In fact, although the inner demons were still in Tang Zheng's body, the inner demon's abilities were restrained and could not be used at all. Unless he controlled Tang Zheng's body, only then could he use that terrifying strength again. The 100 Change Star Sovereign did not know this at all, which was why he was scared away. In fact, Tang Zheng's action was not entirely a prank. He did it because he saw the fatigue on the Empyrean Fairy's face. The Empyrean Fairy had been tortured by the inner demons and had used up a lot of her power. The remnant soul in Tian Chanzi's body was also weakening, and his strength had decreased sharply. Although the 100 Transformation Star-Lord's strength had decreased greatly, his team was obviously not strong enough. Moreover, the opponent had the giant. Therefore, to be safe, he did not want to fight the 100 Transformation Star-Lord directly for the time being. There were too many unknowns. He did not want anything to happen to his people. Therefore, he had to intimidate the 100 Transformation Star-Lord. However, the 100 Transformation Star-Lord was also a smart person. As long as he had time, he would definitely figure out the trick. By then, he would understand that he had been fooled by Tang Zheng. However, by then, everyone would have recovered their power, and it would not be easy for him to deal with Tang Zheng. "Humph, young man, you are quite smart. You used my name to scare this person away," the inner demons said with mixed feelings. Tang Zheng smiled and said, "That's because he is too stupid. You are smart enough, but Chi Yu's remnant soul has been hiding in your body for so long, and you did not even notice it. You are really too smart." The inner demons mocked. Tang Zheng was furious and said, "Chi Yu, come out and tell me clearly. What is your purpose in hiding in my body? Isn't it obvious? Once the time is up, you will be reborn." The inner demon said. Chi Yu immediately retorted, "Inner demons, will anyone believe your words? Tang Zheng, think about it yourself. Did I do anything bad in your body? I even helped you subdue the sword spirit and defeated the sword god. Have you forgotten? If I wanted to harm you, why would I take the risk to help you?" Tang Zheng was moved. Chi Yu had indeed helped him a lot. What's so hard to explain? He was protecting this body, not your life. Young man, you can't be so easily fooled by him, right? The inner demons directly exposed him. Chi Yu was furious. "Inner demons, no one will think you are mute if you don't talk." Nonsense. Seeing that the two of them were at a loss for words, Tang Zheng frowned. He did not expect them to analyze anything useful from their conversation. The others had already surrounded them, their eyes filled with vigilance. After all, he had just called himself the inner demons. They could not help but be worried. "Are you Tang Zheng or the inner demons?" the Empyrean Fairy asked. "Of course I am Tang Zheng. Why don't you recognize me? Tang Jing smiled and said. Then why did you say that you are the inner demons? Of course it was to scare the 100 Faces Star Sovereign. He made us so scared. How could we let go of such a good opportunity to scare him? Don't doubt Master. He is Master, not the inner demons. Ling Er knows. Ling Er said as she hugged Tang Zhang's arm. Xiao Bai also happily jumped onto Tang Zhang's shoulder. He held his head and kept rubbing it, turning his hair into a chicken coop. Tang Zhang grabbed Xiao Bai and pretended to be angry. Stop. However, Little White grinned, and actually did not give up, causing Tang Zhang to be helpless. Tian Chanzi had been looking at Tang Zhang with a scrutinizing gaze. After a long while, he said, You are indeed not the inner demons. What about the inner demons? Did you really destroy them? Tian Chanzi's expression was a little excited. The inner demons have existed for so many years. No one has ever been able to destroy them. I did not expect them to die in your hands. You are wrong. The inner demons are not dead. Tang Jing said. Not dead. Tian Chanzi was shocked. How can he not be dead? If he is not dead, then why are you not under his control? Tang Zhang hesitated. Since the inner demons were imprisoned here by Qi Yu and the Yellow Emperor, then the remnant soul in Tian Chanzi's body was probably related to Qi Yu. So, he said directly, because I have Qi Yu's remnant soul in my body. The two of them fought against each other, and no one could do anything to the other. Naturally, it led to this situation. Qi Yu. Tian Chanzi's voice suddenly raised a few octaves. You mean Qi Yu is not dead? Tang Zhang saw him so excited and was about to say something. However, Qi Yu shouted in his body, Tang Jing, why are you telling him this? Do you know who he is? Who is he? Tang Zhang was confused. This remnant soul was deliberately left on the bronze coffin by the Yellow Emperor, so it is the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor. He is my sworn enemy. If he hears that I am not dead, how will he punish you? Qi Yu said bitterly. Tang Zhang's head thumped. The Yellow Emperor and Qi Yu were sworn enemies. Since the Yellow Emperor knew that Qi Yu was not dead, he would not let him go. Sure enough, Tian Chanzi's eyes had changed. He was looking at Tang Zhang with a murderous look. Qi Yu is not dead. I will never let him live in this world and bring disaster to the world. Tian Chanzi roared. He slapped Tang Zhang with his palm. At such a close distance, even Tang Jing himself could not resist, let alone the others. He did not expect Tian Chanzi to attack him. For a moment, the situation was very critical. Qi Yu was so angry that he wanted to stomp his feet. He cursed, Tang Jing, you are really stupid. Yellow Emperor, even if I, Qi Yu, die, I will never forgive you. However, no matter how hard Qi Yu shouted, there was nothing he could do. Stop! An angry roar burst out from Heaven Monk's mouth, only to see his palm steadily stopping in front of Tang Zhang's forehead. The wind from his palm blew at Tang Zhang's face, causing Tang Zhang's face to hurt. Tang Zhang was shocked. He quickly took a few steps back to avoid Tian Chanzi. As for the shout just now, he also heard it clearly. That was the real Tian Chanzi, not the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor. Obviously, at the critical moment, Tian Chanzi tried his best to control his body and save Tang Zhang's life. I won't allow you to hurt Tang Zhang. Tian Chanzi roared hysterically. Tian Chanzi, you dare to resist me? The remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor was furious. This is my body. I make the decisions. No matter who you are not qualified to make the decisions, let alone use my hands to hurt Tang Jing. Tian Chanzi was aggressive. Qi Yu chuckled. I didn't expect Tian Chanzi to save your life at the critical moment. Now you don't have to worry anymore. The remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor is already at the end of its tether and is rapidly weakening. Tian Chanzi can gradually control the body. As time passes, the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor will only become weaker and weaker. Then there is nothing to worry about. Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. However, looking at Tian Chanzi talking to himself, he felt his heart ache. Shut up. If you dare to help Qiyu, I'll destroy your body. The remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor threatened. Even if you destroy my body, I won't let you succeed. Tian Chanzi would rather die than submit. The two of them argued back and forth. Tian Chanzi's body trembled uncontrollably. It was obvious that he was in great pain. His own soul was fighting with the soul of the Yellow Emperor. Qiyu, do you have any way to help Tian Chanzi? Tang Zheng asked anxiously. Qiyu didn't care and said, why are you worried about him? He won't die. As for the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor, he's dead for sure. The remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor is closely related to the bronze coffin. As soon as the bronze coffin is opened, his remnant soul will quickly weaken. The more time passes, the weaker his remnant soul will become. In the end, his soul will scatter. All you need to do is wait. Looking at Tian Chanzi, who had fallen to the ground and was constantly twitching, and even talking to himself, Tang Zheng was in great pain. He wanted to help, but didn't know how. As time passed by, Tian Chanzi's struggles gradually subsided. Finally, his legs kicked, and he stopped moving. Tang Zheng was stunned. Could it be that he was dead? Chapter 850. Tian Chanzi slowly opened his eyes, relaxed his eyebrows, and grinned, silly boy, even if you wish for me to die, I won't die. My life is big. He stretched his muscles and bones, and sure enough, he was fine. He was full of energy. Seeing this familiar smile, Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. He punched Tian Chanzi's shoulder and said, it's good that you're not dead, it's good that you're not dead. Seeing how concerned you are about me, you can't bear for me to die, right? Tian Chanzi rolled his eyes and laughed strangely. I just can't bear for you to die. I still have a lot of things for you to do. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes. How heartless. Tian Chanzi crawled up, patted his clothes, and said, damn it, if I, Tian Chanzi, was not strong enough, wouldn't I have been taken away by that remnant soul? This body of mine was obtained with great difficulty, how can I let him off so easily? You've been missing for a while. What happened? Why did you come to the prehistoric heavenly tomb? Tang Zheng asked. Sigh, it's a long story. Tian Chanzi sighed, and spoke tirelessly. It turned out that when he had chased all the way to the island nation, he had discovered that the strange phenomenon in the sky was caused by the mountain river blood sacrifice array. Furthermore, this was led by the 100 Transformation Star Lord, and it had already been completed. The demon clan had already returned, and he was powerless to reverse the situation. However, according to his observations, there were not many demon clans who had returned, so he was relieved. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, he had been tracking the demon clan and discovered that they had actually split into two groups. One group directly took the ship back to Huaxia with great fanfare, and the other group quietly returned to Nanyang. After that, they took a big detour and entered Huaxia from the southwest border, and directly snuck into the 10,000 huge mountains. Tian Chanzi followed them all the way. He knew that the 100 Faces Star Sovereign had a deep meaning behind his actions. The demons on the ships were there to attract the enemy's attention. The most important thing was the people returning to the 100,000 mountains. When the heaven monk realized that they were actually plotting something, he observed them from afar. Unexpectedly, one day, he did not know what the 100 Transformation Star Lord did, but something actually broke out of the ground from the graves in the prehistoric heavenly tomb. That battle was extremely huge, and it caused a huge tremor between heaven and earth, like an earthquake. The tremors detected by the outside world were caused by this. Tian Chanzi discovered that the things that broke out of the ground were actually sets of white bones. It was obvious that they were left behind after death, and were the experts from the ancient times who were buried in the prehistoric heavenly tomb. But what surprised Tian Chanzi the most was that one of the targets was actually a giant with flesh and blood. Tian Chanzi had lived for more than 1,000 years, but he had never heard of or seen such a giant. He was really shocked. The giant clan had long disappeared without a trace in the long river of history. Tian Chanzi naturally did not know, but he understood that all of this was troublesome. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign and the other demon clans were extremely excited, as if they had a secret technique to control these white bones and giants. In addition, there were also those demonic beasts. Under the orders of the 100 Faces Star Sovereign, the white bones first landed in the canyon, followed by the demonic beasts. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign and the demon clan. Hearing the movement at the bottom of the canyon, Tian Chanzi understood that something must have happened below. In order to investigate, he did not hesitate to chase down to the bottom of the valley. He just happened to see the 100 Faces Star Sovereign and the others tying a chain to a huge bronze coffin, trying to pull it up from the canyon. Unexpectedly, at this time, a sudden change occurred. A black aura rose from the bronze coffin, and when the nearby demonic beasts and demon clan were touched by the black aura, they immediately fell to the ground and died. The crowd screamed and fled in all directions. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign seemed to have a plan, and ordered White Bones to attack again. It seemed that White Bones could fight against the black aura, and the two sides were entangled. At this time, the 100 Faces Star Sovereign ordered the other demonic beasts to tie the chain to the huge bronze coffin, and was about to pull it up directly. Tian Chanzi had been hiding in the dark to observe. He also wanted to know what was hidden in the huge bronze coffin that could make the 100 Faces Star Sovereign and the demon clan move so many people. The canyon was almost full of the 100 Faces Star Sovereign's men. Although Tian Chanzi hid well, when the demonic beasts climbed up the cliff, he was still exposed. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign's eyes immediately swept over, and he shouted, "It's you," and was about to attack. Tian Chanzi knew that he was no match for the 100 Faces Star Sovereign, and it was impossible for him to escape now. His eyes locked onto the huge bronze coffin, and he made up his mind. Since he was going to die anyway, he would go and see what was in the huge bronze coffin that made the 100 Faces Star Sovereign value it so much. Perhaps he could destroy it before he died, so that the 100 Faces Star Sovereign would not succeed. When he flew to the top of the huge bronze coffin and was about to open the lid, he felt a mysterious power rush into his brain. Then, he was controlled. However, he was still conscious, but he was unable to control his body. He could clearly feel that his strength was rising, and finally reached a level that he could not reach. Then, he uncontrollably fought the 100 Faces Star Sovereign, and found that he was actually a match for him. Later, when Tang Zheng and the others arrived and opened the huge bronze coffin, the power of the remnant soul that controlled his body decreased sharply. What about the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul? Was it destroyed by you? Tang Zheng asked with concern. Tian Chanzi scratched his head, and said noncommittally, "It should have been destroyed. I can no longer feel his existence." What do you mean by should have been destroyed? Tang Zheng rolled his eyes speechlessly. He is so strong, how would I know if he was truly destroyed? In any case, I have already regained control of my body, and I can no longer feel his existence. Everything is over, so you don't need to worry. Tian Chanzi said casually. Tang Zheng looked at him deeply, and in the end, he nodded helplessly. I also have to thank the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul. Although he is no longer here, and my cultivation has decreased a lot from my previous peak, it is still much higher than before. Now, I am already at the 9th stage of the Yuanying realm, and am only a step away from the deity transformation realm. Tian Chanzi said excitedly. This was indeed a pleasant surprise. Although it was dangerous, he felt that it was extremely worth it. If it was any other cultivator, they would most likely clamor for this opportunity. Of course, if the huge bronze coffin had not been opened, then the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul would not have been damaged. Then, whether or not Tian Chanzi would have been able to regain control of his body was unknown. In short, this was Tian Chanzi's opportunity. When Tang Zheng heard this, he was happy for him, and said, "This is your compensation. Your strength has increased greatly, so when we face the 100 Transformation Starlord in the future, we will have a greater chance of victory." Although the Empyrean Fairy and the 100 Transformation Starlord had not yet fought, Tang Jing believed that the Empyrean Fairy would definitely not lose to the 100 Transformation Starlord, so their strength was guaranteed. Tian Chanzi nodded, and looked at Tang Jing worriedly, and said, "The inner demons and Qi Yu are in your body at the same time. Will your body be okay?" Tang Jing also thought it through. Since he could not chase away the two of them, there was no need to be entangled in this matter. Moreover, there were two of them who could balance each other. If there was only one, then it would be terrible, and he would have to be on guard against him at all times. However, Tang Jing also felt that he was unlucky, as if he had to deal with this kind of thing. Back then, it was Tian Chanzi who lived in his body, and now it was Qi Yu and the inner demons. Moreover, one was more powerful than the other. As for whether the future would be a blessing or a disaster, he had no way to predict it for the time being. He could only block soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir, and take one step at a time. The baleful Yin Qi here is very strong. Let's leave this place. Tian Chanzi looked at the canyon where the Yin Qi was raging and urged. Tang Zheng was about to say that they should leave, but the war soul in his hand began to buzz and tremble, and the sword's cry did not stop. "Master, this baleful Yin Qi is useful to me," the sword spirit suddenly said. Tang Zheng suddenly realized that the war soul sword was originally named after the war soul. The war soul was a baleful Yin Qi, so naturally, the war soul sword also contained an extremely strong baleful Yin Qi. Later on, when the war soul and the sword soul fused, the baleful Yin Qi became even stronger. However, Tang Zheng did not go to many places with dense baleful Yin Qi. The baleful Yin Qi in this canyon could actually suppress and imprison the inner demons. It could be seen how powerful it was. "Alright, then you can absorb this baleful Yin Qi." Tang Zheng was overjoyed. He knew that if the war soul sword absorbed it, its quality would definitely improve. The war soul sword was already a heaven-level magical wave, but he didn't know what it would be like if it was upgraded. "Everyone, wait a moment. The baleful Yin Qi here is so strong. If an ordinary person came here, they would definitely suffer. Why don't I use the war soul sword to absorb it?" After Tang Jing finished speaking, he threw the war soul sword into the air and shouted, "Go!" The war soul sword floated in the air. Immediately, a strong suction force came from the war soul sword. In an instant, a whirlpool appeared on the war soul sword. The aura of the heaven and earth was in chaos. The evil wind roared and all the baleful Yin Qi surged in. In an instant, the war soul sword's light increased greatly. The sword light was tens of thousands of feet long, illuminating the originally dark canyon as bright as day. So. Streams of sword qi danced in all directions, leaving deep marks on the cliffs of the canyon after being struck by the sword qi. After a long time, all of this calmed down. The air in the canyon was refreshed. Without the baleful Yin Qi, it actually seemed a little warm. Whiz! With a flash of sword light, the war soul sword flew back into Tang Zheng's hands. Tang Zheng looked at it carefully. There was actually a strange symbol on the war soul sword. This symbol was curved and curved, as if it had a profound meaning. Tang Zheng looked at it and actually couldn't understand it. "What is this?" The others all came over and stared at the symbol, puzzled. Tian Chanzi pinched his chin and muttered to himself for a long time, I have never seen this symbol before. Did the war soul sword not have it before? Tang Jing firmly shook his head. The war soul sword was the magic treasure that had accompanied him the longest. He knew every single detail about it like the back of his hand. Tang Jing scratched his head, not knowing what this mysterious symbol represented. It must have been a change after absorbing so much baleful yin qi. Sword spirit, do you know what this means? Tang Zheng had an idea and directly asked the sword spirit. Chapter 851. The sword spirit's voice sounded, Master, I feel that the war soul sword has undergone a qualitative change. As for the mysterious symbol, it seems to contain some kind of mysterious power that even I am unable to completely understand. Tang Zheng was stunned, even the sword spirit was unable to understand it. What did that mean? As for the quality of the war soul sword, Tang Jing could clearly feel that it had increased by a large amount. Tang Jing, your war soul sword has already left its mortal body and transcended into a saint. Qi Yu's voice suddenly sounded. Transcendence into a saint. Tang Jing was shocked, he had never heard of these words before. What did they mean? There are thousands of time weapon magic treasures, but there are corresponding ranks. In the past, you only understood the ranks of mortal-grade magic treasures, such as heaven, earth, profound, and yellow. However, there are other ranks of magic treasures, breaking away from the mortal body and transcending into a saint, then the magic treasure will become a holy artifact, and at this time, the magic treasure will become even more powerful, but there is one thing, all holy artifacts must have an artifact spirit. Your war soul sword has a sword spirit, this is the key to advancing to a holy artifact. It seemed that in order to restore a good impression, Qiyu spoke in detail. There are still many ranks of holy artifacts, and there are a total of 6 grades. Grade 1 is the lowest, and grade 6 is the best. Your war soul sword has just crossed the threshold of grade 1 holy artifact. Angle, grade 1 holy artifact. Tang Zheng could not help but stroke the war soul sword. He had never thought that there would be a new level above the heaven grade magic treasure. For a moment, he was filled with emotions. In ancient times, there were many holy artifacts, but after the Battle of Zhuolu, the experts fell, and the number of holy artifacts gradually decreased. Especially in magic treasures, it was extremely difficult for an artifact spirit to appear, which was the key to restricting the appearance of holy artifacts. In ancient times, the weapon refiners refined magic treasures with artifact spirits, directly becoming holy artifacts. Later on, there were more and more weapon refiners, and there were only mortal-grade magic treasures left in the world. There were very few holy artifacts. Tang Jing nodded. No wonder Tian Chanzi did not know about the holy artifact, and never told me about it. It turns out that the holy artifact had already gradually disappeared in the long river of history. Actually, you already possess a sacred artifact. You just didn't know about it, Qiyu said. Tang Zheng was startled. He suddenly had an idea, and said, You mean the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows? These were the only 2 magic treasures he had on him that he had never been able to see through. Smart. These 2 magic treasures are the divine weapons of Ho-I from ancient times. They are both sacred artifacts. However, you are temporarily unable to communicate with their artifact spirits, so you have yet to fully unleash their profundities. Tang Zheng's heart could not help but thump. He had always relied heavily on the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrows, but it turned out that he had not fully unleashed their power. If he had truly unleashed their full power, what kind of scene would that be? He really couldn't imagine. Then, are there any other grades above sacred artifacts? Tang Jing asked. He had learned his lesson. He had always thought that the heaven-level magic treasure was the limit. He didn't expect himself to be a frog at the bottom of a well. I'll leave this for you to discover. It's too early for you to know now. It will only increase your frustration and disturb your mind. It's not beneficial to your cultivation. Qiyu said, obviously not wanting to tell him. Tang Jing frowned and said, "You don't want to tell me, right? Do you have any other unknown motives?" He no longer trusted Qiyu, so of course he wouldn't completely believe his words. "It doesn't matter if you believe me or not. I don't want to say any more," Qiyu said helplessly. "Ha ha ha, Qiyu, how does it feel to eat your own medicine?" The inner demon suddenly laughed out loud. "Young man, Qiyu did not lie to you this time. It is indeed not a good thing for you to know in advance. It is not beneficial to your cultivation." "Hang, do I need you to say good things for me?" Qiyu didn't appreciate it at all. "Of course I don't want to say good things for you. I just don't want to trouble you." The inner demon snorted and retorted. Tang Zhang let out a sigh of relief. The inner demons and Qiyu's words were compared to each other. Qiyu really didn't lie. He couldn't help but feel gratified. These two souls kept each other in check and balance, which was indeed beneficial to him. Otherwise, if he listened to one side, he wouldn't even know if he was dragged into a ditch. Tang Zheng was talking with the two souls, but he didn't notice that the Empyrean fairy was staring at the war spirit sword with a complicated expression. She muttered to herself, "You actually upgraded a magic treasure to a sacred artifact. It's really inconceivable." Tang Zheng suddenly heard this and stared at the Empyrean fairy as if he had just woken up from a dream. He asked, "You also know about the sacred artifact?" The Empyrean fairy nodded. "Of course I know." Tang Zheng was delighted and patted his head. He was really too stupid. The Empyrean fairy was also an ancient person and had seen a lot. He was afraid that she was even more knowledgeable than Tian Chanzi. He could ask her these questions. Were there a lot of sacred artifacts in ancient times? The Empyrean fairy curled her lips and said, "Do you think sacred artifacts are cabbages? How could there be a lot? When I was still young, there were already not many sacred tools. Only those with high statuses and powerful strength could be equipped with them. It was impossible for ordinary people to possess sacred tools. Otherwise, they would be met with a fatal disaster. You should understand the principle of, a man is innocent, but treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime, right?" Tang Jing nodded. "Of course I understand." "Hey, excuse me, what is a sacred artifact?" "You are confusing me." Tian Chanzi hurriedly shouted with a suspicious face. "Tian Chanzi, you didn't have a sacred artifact at that time, right?" "I've never heard of it." Tian Chanzi shook his head. "This is very clear. Sacred artifacts gradually decreased in the long river of history until they finally disappeared. Even if one or two artifacts were passed down occasionally, people didn't know that they were sacred artifacts. For example, Tian Chanzi, you only had 4 magic artifacts at that time: heaven, earth, black, and yellow. By the way, did you have an artifact spirit at that time?" Tang Jing spoke frankly with assurance and gradually sorted out his thoughts. Of course there was an artifact spirit, but it was pitifully few. If a magic artifact had an artifact spirit, its power would definitely increase greatly. Tian Chanzi said with longing. He had once imagined that his magic artifact had an artifact spirit, but it was something that could only be encountered by chance. It had to be at the right time, place, and people to have an artifact spirit. Tang Jing nodded and said, "But even if a magic artifact had an artifact spirit, it hadn't been promoted to a sacred artifact, right?" Tian Chanzi shook his head blankly. "Didn't I tell you before? I haven't even heard of the word sacred artifact." "That's right. Although there are occasionally artifacts in the world, there is no way for them to be promoted to sacred artifacts. Therefore, this is the key to why sacred artifacts are unknown. But I want to tell you now, sacred artifacts are more powerful than heaven, earth, black, and yellow level magic artifacts, and they must have an artifact spirit. Tian Chanzi was enlightened. His eyes stared straight at the war soul sword, licked his lips, and said with envy, "You brat, you're really lucky. You actually have a sacred sword. Do you know how many people don't even dare to dream about this?" Tang Jing laughed, his finger gently brushed the war soul sword, and said, "This is called strength, understand?" Tian Chanzi rolled his eyes and joked, "Strength my ass, you've taken all the good things." Tang Jing knew that this was probably closely related to the sword soul. Without a doubt, the sword soul was originally Qi Yu's item, so it was probably not as powerful as a sacred artifact. Although the sword soul's previous consciousness had been erased, its essence had not changed. Adding on the fact that it had absorbed so much baleful yin qi, it was able to undergo a qualitative change. It was also because the sword soul's previous consciousness had been erased that although it knew that its quality had increased, it still did not know that it had become a sacred artifact. "Tang Jing, how do you know about the sacred artifact?" Empyrean Fairy asked curiously. "Didn't I tell you that there are 2 more souls in my body?" "They told me." Empyrean Fairy looked deeply at Tang Jing and said, "Qi Yu and the inner demons are people from ancient times, even earlier than me. When I was young, I occasionally heard rumors about Qi Yu. They are not good people, so you have to be careful." Seeing that she was so concerned about him, Tang Jing smiled and nodded to thank her. "Preposterous. Who is this little girl? How dare she talk about me like that?" Inner demons shouted unyieldingly. "You are not a good person, so why can't you say it?" Tang Jing retorted, "If you are noisy again, I will directly silence you." Inner demons was angry, but there was nothing they could do. They coldly snorted a few times and did not dare to complain anymore. Empyrean Fairy is the daughter of the Emperor of Heaven. This Emperor of Heaven is a person who came after us. It is said that he is also very powerful. Inner demons, of course you don't know about them. Qi Yu suddenly said. Tang Zhang's head thumped. Qi Yu must have secretly hidden in his body to know about these things. In the future, he must be wary of him. There were some things he could not let him know. "Qi Yu, do you know anything about the Emperor of Heaven?" Tang Jing asked. Qi Yu smiled bitterly. "He came after me, so how could I know? However, since Ji Wuxiang said that Fuxi is a descendant of Fuxi, then this Emperor of Heaven is naturally not an ordinary person. However, in ancient times, the Fuxi clan had already declined. I just didn't expect them to rise again and produce an Emperor of Heaven." Tang Zhang was deep in thought. Fuxi was a legendary figure, and was even more distant than Qi Yu and the Yellow Emperor. However, according to Qi Yu, Fuxi clan had already declined in ancient times, so Qi Yu knew very little about Fuxi clan. However, there was one thing that Tang Jing was sure that Qi Yu definitely knew about, and that was the four symbols venerables and the witch clan. Back then, the witch clan was sealed by Qi Yu, so it was impossible for him not to know. Moreover, the four symbols venerables were damaged. If they were not repaired as soon as possible, it would always be a worry for Tang Jing. When he asked this question, before Qi Yu could answer, the inner demons had already shouted, "What, you have already subdued the four symbols venerables? Hee, Qi Yu, why have all your treasures been taken away by this young man? Hee, young man, well done.